Thank you very much. We are going to take the anthems now. We'll start with the national anthem, thereafter Ondo State anthem, and end it with the university anthem. First, the national anthem. Chancellor and Chairman of the Governing Council of the University of Medical Sciences, UNIMED, Ondo City, Ondo State. Today we are celebrating a man of valor who has opened many doors in decades of his practice as a professor of medicine. Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe. We have in the house relatives of Professor Emeritus, late Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe here present. Permit me to intimate you with our brother to the late Emeritus, that is Chief Taiwo Akinkugbe. A round of applause as we welcome Chief Taiwo Akinkugbe on this occasion. We also have here today another relative, Mrs. Toyin Akinkugbe. A round of applause as we welcome Mrs. Toyin Akinkugbe on this occasion. Let me from there also recognize and welcome dignitaries that join our distinguished guest lecturer on a trip down to Ondo, the Sunshine State, this morning. We have Mrs. B.M.O. Olaopa. Welcome, Mommy. We also have on this occasion Dr. Olaoluwa Rehoboth Oluwatobiloba. A round of applause as we welcome our dignitaries. We also have all the way from University of Ibadan, Professor Akinkugbe Distingusished. Welcome, sir. We also have Professor Duro Adeleke. Welcome, sir. And we have a friend of the guest speaker, Dr. Olufemi Ogunlosi. Welcome, sir. We also have on this occasion a relative of Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe, Mrs. Selina Akinkugbe. Welcome, ma. And we have a nephew to Baba, that's Mr. Olubodun Akinkugbe. Welcome, sir. And we have other members of the family here present. You are all welcome and recognized on this occasion. Let me from there recognize government functionaries and dignitaries that we have among us. Permit me to warmly recognize and welcome the Special Advisor to the Governor on Education, Dr. Wumi Ilawole. A round of applause for her. Welcome. Thanks for joining us on this occasion. And permit me to also warmly recognize a very good friend of the university and is Chief the Odofin Ogboye of Afaokeagbe Community, Evangelist Olumuyiwa Asagunla. A round of applause as we welcome our guests on this occasion. Permit me also to warmly recognize and welcome on this occasion the Deputy Provost of Adeyemi College of Education, now declared University of Education, and the Chairman, UNIMED Parents Forum of the university. Please put your hands together for Dr. Gbade Ikwejobe. You're welcome, sir. And let me also warmly recognize and welcome the deans that we have already here seated. We have the Dean of the Postgraduate School of the University, in person of Professor Julius Ademokoya. You're welcome, sir. We also have the Dean of the Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences here present, Dr. Adelaja Akinlolu. You're welcome, sir. And let me also welcome on this occasion a very good father in the university. He is a director for the Office of Strategy and Program Management, UNIMED Ondo, Professor A.J. Adegeye. You're welcome, sir. Let me also recognize from the Faculty of Medical Rehabilitation of the university, Nigeria's first, that's Professor Elemokon. You're welcome, sir. And we have in the School of Public Health of the university, Professor Engineer Ifekende Adewumi. You're welcome, sir. And from the Faculty of Clinical Sciences of the university, we have Daddy in the house, Professor J.A. Owa. Welcome, sir. Dr. Kolade Mosuro. You're welcome, sir. And another friend to the Akinkugbe family, Dr. Lak Adegbulu. You're welcome, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming on this occasion. We have on this occasion a very good friend of the university. The Vice Chancellor will be so pleased that you are here, sir, Chief Segun Adegoke. A round of applause as we welcome Chief Segun Adegoke on this occasion. And the friend of the Akinkugbe family too, that's a family friend, that's Mr. Folabi Fadojutimi. You're welcome, sir. PDP House representatives for candidates for Ondo East, Ondo West Federal Constituency. You're welcome, sir. That will be the size of the recognitions at this point. We want to start this program now, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming on the podium the Vice Chancellor of the University of Medical Sciences, Ondo, Professor Adesegun Fatose, as he delivers the welcome address on this grand occasion.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me adopt the protocol that has been well laid by the PRO because of time. But that said, permit me to recognize a few people just again to particularly thank them for their presence. I'd like to start with Mama Mbeke Luluwa Olapade Olakpa, the mother of our distinguished guest lecturer for today. Mama, it's good to have you here, ma. Ojonya Dale, Agbama Toyinshima. I want to thank and welcome my Lord Bishop. Bishop Adino, thank you, sir. It's good to have you again here today this morning. Of course, we cannot but recognize the great Akinkugbe family. And it's particularly wonderful to see Mr. Olu Akinkugbe again be with us this year. Welcome. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you are most welcome. It's nice to see Mr. Kennedy. This is the first time I'm seeing him. We've spoken on phone a couple of times. You are welcome. Let me go on straight to the address. As I start this morning by recognizing and thank our amiable visitor, who is hereby represented by the Commissioner for Lands and our very own Special Advisor on Education. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is with great delight that I welcome you all, distinguished men and women from all walks of life, to this unique occasion of the second Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe Distingusished Lecture. We are grateful to God for granting us the opportunity to organize this lecture again. It is my privilege to welcome our amiable visitor and the visionary governor of the Sunshine State, Arakunrin Oluwarotimi Odunayo Akeredolu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who is ably represented by a dynamic professional, a great member of the State Executive Council, and a wonderful friend of our university, Engineer Aminu Raimi, the Honorable Commissioner for Lands and Work. We have the honor also this morning of having with us the Special Advisor to the Governor on Education and the Superintending Officer for Ondo State-owned tertiary institutions, our friend, Dr. Olawumi Ilawole. Thank you very much, ma, for being with us this morning. I most welcome you all. I heartily welcome our royal father, His Royal Majesty, Dr. Victor Adesimbo Kladejo III. This week is Odun Oba's week, and therefore KBC will not be with us physically. But the same way in council, members are on their way, and they'll be joining us soon. I want to welcome my Lord Bishop, Bishop Adeniro, and all other distinguished guests who have joined us today. It is with great joy and delight that I welcome every member of the great Akinkugbe family from Ondo, Ibadan, Lagos, and elsewhere. Mama Professor Mrs. Folashade Akinkugbe could not be here physically with us today, but we have the privilege of the presence of Mr. Olu Akinkugbe, a son of our late Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe, with us. Just as he was with us last year on the occasion of the first lecture. A very warm and special welcome to you, sir. Emeritus Professor Adewale Akinshola, one of my father in the academia, and an extraordinary mentor and a teacher of teachers, who is also one of the mentees of Professor Emeritus Akinkugbe, is billed to be our guest of honor. He has looked forward expectantly to this day, but is currently indisposed. We wish him speedy recovery. It is my pleasure to welcome my friend, my brother, my colleague, our distinguished lecturer for this occasion, Professor Emiola Oluwabunmi Olapade Olokpa, Fellow of the Academy of Science, Fellow of the Academy of Medicine, to this occasion. When I tried introducing him this morning and I started using his title, and I was stammering, he just said to me, "Why are you saying what you are not familiar with? Just say Bumi as you always say, so that I can go with our business." So Bumi, you are most welcome. Bumi is a distinguished academician, surgeon, medical teacher, past provost of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, a cherished friend, a brother, and incidentally, the last time we physically met was in the house of late Emeritus Akinkugbe, just before Baba passed on months after. He came into Baba's house just as I was about leaving, and we just chatted. None of us knew that that would be the last time we had the privilege of talking to Baba. He's a great mentee of Emeritus Prof. Akinkugbe, and is a profound scholar with great passion for medical education. And I cannot imagine a better fit for the topic we are considering today. I want to sincerely thank you again for accepting to serve as our speaker despite your very busy schedule. I also want to welcome the family members, colleagues, and friends of Professor Olapade Olapa, who are here with us physically, as well as those joining us online from all over the world. As I have mentioned at the beginning, I want to specially recognize and thank the proud mother of our distinguished speaker, who is physically with us here. It's such a great joy, ma, to have you in the house. I want to thank all who had come with him from Ibadan. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my Lord spiritual and temporal, we are here today to celebrate an icon whose influence is intergenerational, whose impact is intersectoral, and whose impact spans the continents of the world. Late Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe. The UNIMED community is greatly honored and blessed to have had the late Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe as our foundation pro-chancellor, with a man of his caliber, vision, and experience, as well as huge commitment to educational development. Leading our university council at its foundation, we can claim the word of the psalmist in Psalm 16, verse 6, that the lines are falling onto us in pleasant places. Yes, we have a good heritage. As I mentioned on the occasion of the first lecture, this lecture series is not meant to be a memorial lecture, but an event designed to have commenced in the lifetime of Professor Akinkugbe, as we hold strongly to the view that great men must always be honored, and particularly in their lifetime. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to communicate the idea of this lecture to him while he was alive, and to have received this blessing. He's continuing to be with us because those we love don't really die. They truly transit to the next level. The Akinkugbe lecture is a celebration of excellence. Our strong conviction is that excellence thrives most when it is recognized and celebrated. To foster and sustainably promote a culture of excellence in our institutions and our nation, we must continuously hold men of excellence in our esteem and consciously celebrate them. As I said also at the first lecture, to us in UNIMED, Emeritus Prof. Akinkugbe lives on. He is not just a historical figure in the trajectory of our development, but a continuous inspiration and an evergreen symbol for all we stand for and we aspire to be. He was a man of many paths, and he excelled in them all. This lecture series provides us the opportunity to explore different dimensions of his life and outstanding contributions to our nation and our world. The first in the lecture series focused on air research, and we are fortunate to have a most distinguished researcher, Professor Isaac F. Adewale, Fellow Academy of Science, former Minister of Health, and past Vice Chancellor, the University of Ibadan, as our distinguished lecturer. This year, we are focusing on medical education, and next year, we will hopefully focus on medical practice by God's grace. Working in the footsteps of Emeritus Akinkugbe, our focus is excellence in medical education, research, and services. And our operational philosophy as an institution is excellence or nothing. We are intentional in our mission to offer high-quality education across all health-related sciences and professional fees. One of our exciting initiatives in that respect is the establishment of a Center for Health Professions and Biomedical Education last year to drive the agenda of educating university-based health and medical teachers in the art and science of teaching, and to ensure quality teaching and learning across all our 26 courses spread over our 9 faculties and 2 schools. That center has 10 staff today, including 6 educational technologists and medical production experts. And we have fully functional radio, and our television studio is just getting ready. That center has already started an educational online radio a few months back, and the television is taking off anytime from now. The center's integrated clinical simulation facility is set to take off soon, as the building to house it has been completed and is just being painted currently. Among others, that building will also host the 3D e-learning facilities that will allow, among others, virtual and anatomical dissection, as we demonstrated during the launch of the co-creation hub a few weeks back. We shall be fully deploying these facilities for enhanced and innovative teaching and learning in the new academic session, which is starting in October by God's grace. We are proud, by the way, of our history of undisrupted academic calendar since we took off almost 8 years ago, even at the peak of COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we are one of the few public universities across the length and breadth of Nigeria that has continued its academic program undisrupted, even when most public universities have now closed for more than 5 months. We are thankful to our staff and staff union leadership for their cooperation and unwavering commitment to unbroken and undisrupted academic calendar. As a university, we have invested in the training of our teachers in the science and practice of effective teaching, drawing on the resources of educational experts in science education, pedagogy, and curriculum development in that process. Our policy now requires all our university teachers to have training in pedagogy and related teaching issues. The development and use of courseware is now standard practice across our university, as we have developed the capacity of our teachers in that respect. Furthermore, the Center for Health Professions and Biomedical Education has developed an online certificate training program for university lecturers and has also submitted its draft curriculum for diploma and master's program in health professions education that will operate using a hybrid model. I want to sincerely thank the director of the center, Professor Kayode Osungbade, Deputy Director, Dr. Immaculata Akpalaba, and the head of the technical team, Dr. Layinka Ojo, and the members of their team for the excellent work they are doing. I want to welcome our fathers, members of the Osimarian Council. You are welcome, sirs. We deeply appreciate you. Also of relevance and worthy of mention on this occasion is the inspiring and pioneering effort of our Institute of Advanced Clinical Sciences Education, which is devoted to developing an own academic and professional program for medical and dental professionals. Among others, the center has finalized the curriculum for Masters in Health Law and Policy and Masters and PhD curricula across several clinical fields to address the yawning gap that exists in that regard in our country and across West Africa. Our sincere gratitude to the director of the institute, Professor Leroy Edozian. We are no doubt a young university, but it's also incontrovertible that we have been breaking new grounds in the Nigerian health professional landscape. Very few universities in Nigeria and across West Africa can today compete with us in terms of our strides in health professions and biomedical education. As I always emphasize, our role is not to tread well-beaten paths, and our record is not just being first historically, but rather our divine mandate as Nigeria's first specialized medical and health sciences university is to chart new pathways, address critical unaddressed issues, and pioneer innovative agenda. Our philosophy of excellence or nothing leaves us no other option but to truly and fully be the first and the best. The occasion of this lecture will allow us to learn from Professor Olakpade Olaopa's rich experience and to gain new insights that will further enable our drive for excellence in medical education, particularly at this time when we are about to embark on the revision of our medical curriculum. At this junction, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to sincerely thank the Academic Event Planning Committee under the exemplary leadership of Professor Olumide Ogundansi, the Director of our Central Office of Research and Development, for a job well done. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my lords temporal and my lords spiritual, I sincerely thank you for joining us today to celebrate an unforgettable figure, a colossus in the arena of medical training, practice, and research, and a truly great Nigerian, Emeritus Prof. Oladipo Akinkugbe. Welcome, thank you, and God bless.
Another round of applause for the Vice Chancellor. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, may interest you to note that the Permanent Secretary and the Surveyor General for the state is also in our midst, in person of Surveyor Semiu Adigun. A round of applause as we welcome Surveyor Adigun. You're welcome, sir. Thank you, sir. Also, we have the representatives of His Imperial Majesty, Oba Dr. Victor Adesimbo Kiladejo, CFR, and Jilo III, the Oshimawe and paramount ruler of Ondo Kingdom, ably and well represented by 3 high chiefs of Ondo City. Let's put our hands together for the leader of Ondo Kingdom, High Chief Sir Simeon Olushola Oguntimeyi. A round of applause as we welcome High Chief on this occasion. We also have the Sachere of Ondo Kingdom, High Chief Johnson Olushola Adeduro. And the Odofin of Ondo Kingdom, High Chief Akinshola Olaniyan. You're highly welcome, sir. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, permit me at this point to bring on board the son of late Emeritus Professor Oladipo Akinkugbe for his special remark. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Olumide Akinkugbe.
Our fathers of the Ondo Kingdom, Vice Chancellor and Governing Council, guest speaker, distinguished guests, it is with a deep sense of gratitude that as a family, the university is holding this lecture in honor of our late father. At a time when resources are under strain, the lecture title only further emphasizes the need for prioritization for education. Our late father would have given his firm approval for such a conversation at this time. On behalf of our mother and family, please accept our deepest thanks for the honor you have accorded Prof again today. May his soul continue to rest in peace. Amen. Thank you very much.
Let's again celebrate the son of late Emeritus Professor Oladipo Akinkugbe for that short one. Thank you very much, Mr. Olumide Akinkugbe. At this point, Mr. Vice Chancellor, we would like to take reflections on the life of Professor Oladipo Akinkugbe. And that will come in form of a documentary that has been designed to intimate this audience with the personality of the late Emeritus Professor Oladipo Akinkugbe. Please watch. Late Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe was born on 17th July 1933 to the family of Chief Odofin David Akinkugbe, a chemist, and Chief Mrs. Grace Akinkugbe in Ondo City, Ondo State. He grew up in a stout Christian home. He attended Ondo Boys High School in 1944, from where he took the entrance examination into Government College, Ibadan, and later gained admission into the University College, Ibadan, UCH, in 1951 to begin his study of medicine. This he completed, and as was a practice then, he went to the University of London and the Royal London Hospital, where he took his medical degree MBBS London in 1958. Afterwards, he took a residency training at the London Hospital and King's College Hospital, London, and obtained the MRCP in 1961. During the residency training, he proceeded to obtain a diploma in tropical medicine and hygiene from the University of Liverpool in 1960. He returned to Nigeria in 1961 to take up appointment with Government Specialist Hospital at Adeoyo, Ibadan. He went back to Balliol College, Oxford University, England in 1962 for his DPhil program, working under Sir George Pickering, FRS, Regius Professor of Medicine. He returned to Nigeria in 1965 and took up appointment at the Department of Medicine, University of Ibadan in 1965. He earned the fellowship of Royal College of Physicians, FRCP, 1968. His academic career at Ibadan started in 1965. He had a meteoric rise in academia and was promoted to Professor of Medicine in 1968 at the age of 35. He served as the Dean of Medicine from 1970 to 1974 and head Department of Medicine in 1972. He concurrently held the positions of Head of Medicine, Dean of Medicine, and Acting Vice Chancellor. After his deanship, he took a visiting professorship at Harvard University 1974 to 1975, and at this time his career took a major shift. He became the foundation principal and later vice chancellor of the University of Ilorin 1975 to 1978, and then vice chancellor Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria 1978 to 1980. After his vice-chancellorship, he returned once again to Oxford University in 1981 as visiting professor of medicine and fellow of Balliol College, and then back to the University of Ibadan in 1982, where he remained until retirement in 1995 with various punctuations, including visiting professorship to the University of Cape Town in 1994. He had been Emeritus Professor since 1997. He was a member and a fellow of more than 20 international organizations, societies, and institutions. Among his exploits, Professor Akinkugbe was a Rockefeller Visiting Fellow at Johns Hopkins Medical School. He was secretary to the World Health Organization (WHO), Technical Discussions on Universities and Health for All in Geneva 1983 to 1984. Member WHO Advisory Committee on Health for Research and Visiting Professor of Medicine, University of Cape Town. In later years, he served as a Pro-Chancellor and Chairman, Governing Council of the University of Port Harcourt, 1986 to 1990. He was Chairman, Planning Committee, Ondo State University and the University of Abuja. On Monday, November 16, 2015, the former governor of Ondo State, His Excellency Dr. Olusegun Mimiko, appointed Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe as the first Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of Governing Council, University of Medical Sciences, UNIMED, Ondo City, Ondo State. With that, he occupied all the major positions in the university system except for the position of the Chancellor. Late Professor Akinkugbe was Foundation Chairman of the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAM. He was Chairman of the Presidential Projects Implementation Committee, PPIC, on the refurbishing of teaching hospitals in Nigeria. This succession of positions underlined his thorough grounding in the university system, as reflected in the excellent framework laid for the development of the University of Ilorin. To each appointment, he brought a very high degree of knowledge, skill, thoroughness, dedication, and above all, integrity and transparency. Professor Akinkugbe served in many other capacities in matters related to health, education, and research. He served on many WHO expert committees, including those on cardiovascular diseases, health, manpower development, and Global Advisory Committee on Health Research and OAU Scientific Panel on Health Management. In the early 90s, he led the National Non-Communicable Diseases Survey of the Federal Ministry of Health, which produced its landmark report in 1997. He was the major initiator and founder of the Nigerian Association of Nephrology in 1987 and the Nigerian Hypertension Society some years later, becoming the foundation president in each case. He was for many years the chairman of the board of trustees of NAN and became the first fellow of NAN. He was a man of international stature. In addition to positions at the WHO, he held positions on the councils of International Society of Hypertension, World Heart Foundation, and served on the editorial boards of several journals including Kidney International, Journal of Hypertension, Journal of Human Hypertension. Back at home, Professor Akinkugbe was a former chairman of the Nigeria Heart Foundation (NHF). He practiced medicine for 60 years before hanging the stethoscope in 2018. During the period, he pioneered the establishment of 2 critical clinics in UCH, Ibadan, Hypertension Clinic and Renal Clinic. Both clinics were firsts in Africa. After retirement, he established a private clinic, the Ibadan Hypertension Clinic, which he managed for 20 years. He was a man of diverse attainments and great accomplishments. He received numerous awards, honors, and distinctions. Professor Akinkugbe was a foundation fellow of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria, fellow West African College of Physicians, and fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science. He was recipient of the Nigerian Order of Merit (NOM), Commander of the Order of Niger, Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Honorary Degree of Science from 7 universities including the Universities of Ibadan, Ilorin and Port Harcourt. He was named in August 2019 as one of the Foundation Fellows of the Nigerian Academy of Medicine. He received the Pioneer Award from the International Society of Nephrology in February 2020. Apart from the walls of the Ivory Tower and Hospital, he bagged 4 major traditional titles, including the Atobase of Ile-Ife, where he indeed had been the physician to the royal household from 1969 to 1980, and also held traditional titles in Ondo, Ijebu-Igbo, and Ibadan. He attended over 100 national and international conferences, scientific education and health conferences in almost 50 years in all the continents, and made presentations in many of these with named invited guest lectures. Well known and respected in his field, he chaired scientific sessions on hypertension at many international conferences. A prolific writer, he authored, co-authored, or edited over 10 books and many more chapters in books. Amidst all this, he devoted time to his family. He was married to Folashade Akinkugbe, a fellow of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria in the Faculty of Public Health and Community Medicine, a professor of child health. They both have 2 loving and very successful children. In his lifetime, Professor Akinkugbe found time to socialize in the dining clubs to which he belonged, and he listed a number of activities as his hobbies. These include gardening, bird watching, and collecting clocks. He lived with his wife at the Little Summit, Ibadan, until his demise on 14th June 2020. May the gentle soul of Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe continue to rest in perpetual peace. Amen. On the directive of the Vice Chancellor, may I request that we all stand and observe a minute's silence for late Emeritus Professor Olujimi Oladipo Akinkugbe. May his gentle soul continue to rest in peace. Thank you very much. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, permit me at this point to bring to the podium the Lisa of Ondo Kingdom and the Prime Minister, High Chief Sir Simeon Olushola Oguntimehin, for his special remark on behalf of His Imperial Majesty, Oba Dr. Victor Adesimbo Kiladejo, Jilo III, CFR, the Oshimawe and Paramount Ruler of Ondo Kingdom. Please a round of applause as we welcome High Chief Sir Simeon Olushola Oguntimehin, the Lisa of Ondo Kingdom.
The representative of His Excellency, the Governor of Ondo State, the Vice Chancellor of this university, UNIMED, Chairman of the Governing Council, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I stand on the existing protocol to save time. His Imperial Majesty, Oba Dr. Victor Adesimbo Kiladejo, the Oshimawe and Paramount Ruler of Ondo Kingdom, would have much loved to be here. He planned to be here. But as we all know, and that's why even the governor himself is not here, the governor had to summon all the Obas to Akure, so it's currently with the governor in Akure for another crucial meeting. I want, on behalf of His Imperial Majesty, our Oba, to heartily thank this university for this honor being done to our son, Professor Olujimi Akinkugbe. We thank you sincerely for making sure that his memory is left in perpetuity by this series of lectures, which you started last year. This is the second in the series. You really recognized his contributions to this university right from inception, and that was why, possibly I believe, that the governor deemed it fit to make him the first Pro-Chancellor of this university. We family really appreciate, and the town really appreciates, for this honor you have bestowed on him for this series of lectures. We thank you sincerely. As you have just seen, just a little about our dear professor. We thank God. He was a pride, not only to Ondo Kingdom, not only to even Nigeria. He was a worldwide renowned medical man. He devoted all his life to medicine, and as you have seen, a lot he was able to achieve. And we thank God for his life. We are very proud of him as a distinguished son of this city. And once again, we appreciate the university for this honor done to our son. And I'm seizing this opportunity on behalf of the KBSA to extend once again our condolence to the family left behind, Professor Sade, Akinkugbe, Olumide, and the sons, and every member of the family. Once again, I thank the university for this honor done to our great son. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for the Prime Minister of Ondo Kingdom, the Lisa of Ondo, High Chief Oguntimehin. Thank you very much, sir. We have gradually come to the high point of this occasion, and that is the distinguished lecture. To introduce and read the citation of the guest lecturer, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, permit me to invite to the podium Dr. Immaculata O. Akpalaba to take the citation of the guest lecturer. Dr. Akpalaba, A round of applause as we welcome Dr. Akpalaban.
Our dynamic Vice Chancellor, Principal Officers of UNIMED, our Royal Fathers of the Day, His Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Citation for our distinguished lecturer, Professor Olabade Olaoba. Professor Emiola Oluwabumi Olabade Olaoba, FAS, is a professor of surgery and a consultant urologist at the University of Ibadan and University College Hospital, Oyo State. He had his secondary education at the Loyola College, Ibadan, 1974 to 1979, and proceeded to study medicine at the University of Ibadan, 1980 to 1986. Subsequently, he obtained additional qualifications from University of London, 1993 to 1994, and University of Leicester, 1996 to 2000, both in UK, and the Foundation for the Advancement of International Medical Education and Research, FAMA, in Philadelphia, USA, where he obtained an academic fellowship in medical education in 2003. Professor Olaoba has several degrees and honors. Among these are Honorary Member, New York Academy of Sciences, Foundation Fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Medicine and Academy of Medicine Specialties of Nigeria, Associate Member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, UK, Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons, FRCS, UK. He's a citation for contributions to science in the Marquis, Who is Who in the World. In 2000, our distinguished guest lecturer obtained the degree of Doctor of Medicine, MD, and transitioned to selected group of doctors who are addressed as Mr., with the degree MD after their names. His scholarly contributions are well recognized globally and include guest lecturer and invited presenter at over 82 academic events. He's an author and co-author of over 145 research publications, which have been cited almost 2,000 times as reported in Google Scholar. In year 2019, he became a member of the World Congress of Urology, the highest decision-making body of the specialty, and was elected the chairman of the membership section for Africa during the Congress in Greece. This made him the first Nigerian and the fourth African member. Professor Olaoba has acquired top-class skills in grantsmanship and grant management and has passed on these skills to younger researchers and academics. Since 2004, he has attracted many scientific events, including congresses, workshops, and conferences, as well as research and developmental grants to the University of Ibadan. Some of the notable grants Professor Olaoba attracted to the University of Ibadan include a developmental aid and collaboration grant for faculty development among African oncology faculties from Royal College International, worth $90,000. Development of a medical dictionary in Yoruba, and a project for the development of an anatomy atlas in Yoruba. He also attracted multidisciplinary community projects for the renovation of female hostel in UI, worth 3 million naira. He also attracted multidisciplinary community projects used to develop the Nathaniel O. Idowu Comprehensive Healthcare Centers in Shagbe Community, Oyo State, worth 40 million naira. He also attracted a multidisciplinary community project used to develop the Nathaniel O. Idowu Comprehensive Healthcare Centers in Enyosha Community, Oyo State. He is a trainer of trainers. He is the immediate past provost, College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, from 2016 to 2020. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, with a standing ovation, welcome our distinguished lecturer, Professor Emiola Oluwabumi Olapade Olaopa, MBBS, DIP Role, MD, FMED-ED, FRCS, FWACS, ACIARB, FAS, FNAMED, FAMEDS. Welcome, sir.
Please be seated. The chairman of today, His Excellency Arakunrin Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, the Executive Governor of Ondo State, and all other protocols observed. I must say that Ondo City is my third home in Nigeria, the first, of course, being Ibadan, and the second being Ilesha. And Ondo is my third city home because, as I mentioned to the Vice Chancellor yesterday, there are at least 4 houses that I can stay in Ondo at short notice. And in that regard, I'd like to welcome the representatives of the Oshema Way of Ondo, the High Chiefs, particularly High Chief Oguntimei, who was my father's friend and whose son was my son, and who was an icon in Ibadan as an accountant when we were growing up. I welcome the Chancellor and the Odofin Chiefs of Ondo, and when I go on later, you will see why those are important to me. Of course, I must welcome my friends who are here, starting with the Vice Chancellor. Shegun and I go back a long way. And indeed, when he asked me to give this lecture, I first of all felt that it was a big task, particularly when we consider the measure of the man that I was supposed to be speaking on behalf of. As he said, this was passed through Professor Akinkugbe before he died. So I knew that it was not an in memoriam lecture, but a distinguished series of lectures. And knowing the value of the man we were celebrating, I knew it was not an easy task that he had landed on my desk. But then what are friends for? I must congratulate him on what he has achieved at the UNIMED. Going around the campus when I came yesterday, I was indeed impressed. And when you listened to his speech, you could see, as I will point out in my lecture, that he has a very strong management and academic team. And I congratulate you for that. But as I told him yesterday, and as you would also hear in my lecture, the greatest blessing he has from this human side, which God has bestowed him with, is that he has a visitor that is not breathing down his neck. He has a visitor that shares his vision, and he has a visitor that leaves him alone. That is of unquantifiable value when you're a chief executive. And kindly tell Arakunrin that we thank him for allowing a medical school to be run by medical educators who know exactly what they want to do with minimal interference. That is indeed a blessing. I must especially welcome 2 other people who have not been recognized. The first is my Egbon Otumba. We call him Gab. His name will come to me in a minute. Runshewe, who has come from Ibadan. He's one of those that I grew up in his hands, and I always tell people all my good behavior are mine, all the bad behavior is his. And Mr. Kolade Musuro, who has helped us greatly in ensuring that our books, particularly the Yoruba language books, have been carried far and beyond. I will delve into my lecture. I welcome you all, and I welcome the visitor who is on a long leave of absence from Ibadan. I welcome other members of the State Executive Council, particularly the Commissioner for Lands and the Special Advisor on Education who are here representing him, the Pro-Chancellor and Council of the University, members of the Council, the Vice-Chancellor and other Principal Officers, members of Congregation and Senate and members of staff, and of course our students. There is nothing we can do without our students. Members of the fourth realm of the state, I also welcome you. I bring you greetings from Ibadan, which is a city of rust and splash and its famous university. I bring you also greetings from its medical school, which was the highest ranked medical school in sub-Saharan Africa from the year 2020, actually now to 2022. The new rankings have been released. Greetings from the Association of Medical Schools in Africa, because and the World Federation for Medical Education, where I represent Africa, because transforming medical education is is very topical now across the world for various reasons I shall mention. I must thank the University of Medical Sciences of Ondo City for inviting me to deliver this year's Emeritus Prof. Akinkugbe Distinguished Lecture, which is the second in the series. The first lecture, titled Strengthening the Health System in Nigeria Through Research and Innovation, is a highly cerebral mentee of our late icon, Professor Isaac Folorunsho Adewale, who preceded me in office as Provost of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, and who then went on to be Vice Chancellor of the University and then Honorable Minister of Health of the Federal Republic. I'm therefore humbled by my selection and consider it a privilege, bearing in mind the depth of the field of choice and thus the strength of the competition. Although I have given other expert lectures nationally and internationally, this lecture is undoubtedly one of the highlights of my career so far, and I do so on behalf of the Association of Medical Schools in Africa, my institutions, and my academic and professional colleagues and students. The man we're here to celebrate, Professor Oladipo Olujimi Ajibike Akinkugbe. In Ibadan, we do not forget our ancestry, and we immortalize our ancestors in various ways. We have certainly ensured Professor Akinkugbe's will not be forgotten for many lifetimes, as his name has been etched onto the very walls of the university and its medical school. And that slide shows us our pioneer professors who we immortalized in busts. Professor Akinkugbe has a bust inside a building named after him. There is a kidney center named after him. And of course, as a Nigerian National Merit Award winner, his photograph lines the walls of our College of Medicine as you go to the Provost's office. To summarize his achievements would be a task, but his breadth of involvement in the development of Nigeria, as mentioned by the Vice Chancellor, especially in but not limited to the education and health sectors, is probably best measured by the many areas in which he left his footprints. But for the purposes of time, I shall only mention the major one. These are medicine, where he was acknowledged as a master physician and teacher of teachers in nephrology and cardiology, and also a revered scholar in hypertension. In mentorship, Professor Akinkugbe taught many students and residents at the University of Ibadan, but he did not limit his catchment of mentees to this institution, medical sciences, or indeed academia. He was adopted many more across generations, universities, specialties, and regions, and this was perhaps his greatest strength. In governance and political networking, Professor Akinkugbe was a not so quiet academic and political networker. Indeed, his network in this regard was second to none, and whose name was not in his diary of global contacts was probably not worth knowing. He enjoyed being an advisor to many federal and state governments and international organizations. As a socialite, he took his social networking seriously and would be found in several elite social events, especially in the Southwest, where he was well sought after as either a chairman or speaker, and he would regale the audience with his rich knowledge of history and his uncommon familiarity with both English and Latin, and unbeknown to many, Yoruba. He often portrayed the qualities of a quintessential Englishman, a chief of Ondo and of the Source, and an Arabadan, all in one sitting. As regards my personal relationship with our late icon, probably like most people, I consider it unique, as the first phase was from my childhood until I traveled to the United Kingdom, whence I was his friend's son, and later his student. The second phase of our relationship covered my postgraduate training abroad, when I had a more direct relationship with him. During this phase, I kept him abreast of my progress with my training, although I suspect he was disappointed I chose to specialize in surgery, not internal medicine. However, I made up for that when at the formation of the Archives of Ibadan Medicine, which he helped nurture into a major contributor to the academic and professional aspects of medicine nationally and internationally. The third and final phase of our relationship was when I returned to the country until his demise. During this long and enduring phase, I was elevated from a mentee to a chosen sounding board for his ideas and planned actions, and an anointed sparring partner during discussions on national affairs. I further transformed, or perhaps transmuted, into a loyal critic of the rationale for some of the decisions taken and the policies enacted in the past. These roles allowed me to have long discussions with him on numerous issues, during both of us would come up with superior arguments, and he would often remind me that I was not too old to be asked to face the corner or have his cane applied correctly. At the end, I learned a lot, but I gained a deeper understanding of his persona, and this is what made my relationship with this icon sui generis in quantum valorem. Understandably, I was enriched, indeed some would say empowered by this unique opportunity. I'm therefore grateful for this divinely ordained opportunity to have had close one-on-one sessions with one of the finest minds of his genre globally, and who was unarguably one of the greatest strategists of all time. In conclusion, my relationship with our late iconic mentor, when added to my academic and professional experience in medical practice, education and health systems, and health professionals education, has prepared me, at least in part, for delivering this distinguished lecture in his memory. The lecture. The title I was given was Imperatives for Transforming Health Professionals Education. And when we look at the English language, there are two operative words, imperatives and transforming. And these mean that imperative is something that is crucial, necessary, and indeed perhaps urgent. Transforming means to change, modify, but in most instances, we hope it would improve. When you look at transforming medical education, we must understand that ultimately it's about healthcare. And the quality of healthcare reflects the quantity and quality of human resources available in any health system, but also the ability of those personnel to respond to the health needs of the community. It is therefore dependent on the quality of the health professionals' education available locally, and this is provided by the health professionals training institutions, which are the medical schools, the schools for other health professionals, teaching hospitals, and the primary and secondary health centers. What is the problem? The problem is there are just not enough health professionals worldwide, and there are many people looking for them. Indeed, it is projected that the deficit will rise to 15 million by 2030, and the highest demand is in high-income countries. Therefore, there is migration from lower to middle-income countries to these high-income countries who know what to do with them and who know how to recompense human resource for health. It is therefore not surprising that the severest shortage is in sub-Saharan Africa, and COVID-19 has ensured that we have an even worse problem. In Nigeria, the current finance challenges are well known. Inadequate finance, inadequate staff, inadequate infrastructure, insecurity. Many more people would have been here if not for the insecurity. And then there's the increased demand for health as occasioned by the population explosion and the migration across borders. All over the world, Nigeria is not an exception. But we have the particular problem of poverty, illiteracy, and poor access. And when you look at what we have to cope with all these challenges, you see that despite all what we've said, Nigeria has the highest number of human resources for health and health training institutions in sub-Saharan Africa. The problem is there is inadequate distribution of this personnel, as they really like to stay, understandably, in the cities instead of the rural areas. And then we have the particular problem of having an oversupply of unqualified health workers, particularly the spiritual health workers, who I must say, I always thank God they are there, because considering the population of Nigeria and the number of health workers we had, if we didn't have the spiritualists, I really don't know what we would do. So I always hesitate to criticize. At least they take care of some. So why must we transform health professionals training education? Unbeknown to many, the real problem is that education and health are the major contributions to national development, because both of them determine the quality of your human capital. Education on its own develops the person's health status and his life expectancy, because when you're educated, you know what to do without anybody chasing you around. Interestingly, and congratulations to the women folk, the highest returns are gained by educating girls and women. Indeed, it is said that a country that does not educate its girls and women cannot develop. Health on its own improves the quality of labor, because that doesn't really need much description. When you're of a healthy nature, you can work for longer, you can work better, and your brain tends to work a lot faster. As such, health professionals training institutions such as the UNIMED are uniquely placed to engender socioeconomic development, and that is their real role. This slide is just to show us that the environment dictates a lot what the learners will gain, because you must look at what the community requires before you decide what you are going to teach, and then decide how you are going to teach it. Check that your learners actually have learned, because there's a lot of focus on teaching. If there is no learning, then you are wasting your time. So the assessment is for learning, and of course you only know that when you evaluate your program. We do not like doing that. Audit is something that is not common in Nigeria. What are the current global standards? The philosophy of health professionals education must of necessity change constantly as the communities it is meant to address change. Therefore, we must develop more and more modern, or adapt more and more modern methods of teaching and assessment to ensure the students learn. As such, nowadays, there is a wave of curriculum reform going across the whole world. And the whole idea is we have learned, as I've mentioned, that it's not teaching that is important, but indeed what is being learned. So we focus more on what our outcome is. And the best at this point is competency-based medical education, which has all these levels, which I will describe in part. The most important thing is to take away from this slide is that we've now turned education on its head by saying, at this last point, what are the essential professional duties? What are the routine, general, community-specific tasks you want your health professionals to be able to undertake when they graduate? Then you design how you are going to train them to have the skills to do so. You don't train them first and then ask them to go and acquire the skills to undertake these duties. And this is not an epiphany. We've walked through it since 1904 when we first started having scientific curriculum, which were university-based. This was started in the United Kingdom. Later on, we moved in 1990. See how long it took us to move. 90 years before we decided that no, what you needed to do was to identify the problems first, and then moved out of university to academic centers. But within 10 years, we moved to competency-driven formats, and now we realize that we needed to look at our education systems. Later on, we decided that we needed to look at professional regulatory practice. What do the professions say we should do? And now lately, in 2016, 4 years later, we've now looked at the essential physician duties by looking at what the society and the purchasers of service, what they actually want. That is where we are now, and we are glad that Africa has contributed significantly to this. This is just a more, a simpler version to say that when you are looking at how you are going to train your health professionals, you must make sure it's in tune with your institution's mission statement, and then design the outcomes, as I mentioned before you look at the learning objectives, before you look at the skills or competencies that are required, then you design your courses. And this is what I mean by we've turned it upside down. Before, we used to do syllabus. People will write syllabus, and then we will decide to test them on the syllabus, and then hopefully we would make a good mark when they graduate. We don't do that anymore. So when you are going to transform a health professional's education system, you must focus both on the education and the healthcare delivery, because you want to produce competent, socially responsive health individuals. What that means is that your health professionals must understand that they are answerable to the community. Once the community does not think they're doing well, it doesn't matter whether you have 20 A1s and you have 20 distinctions as a doctor, it doesn't matter, or as a physiotherapist. You must make sure that you are responsive to the community. That means that we need an overall functioning health education system. And as I will show, it involves all stakeholders rather than just tinkering with your curriculum. I will also show how pointless that is. And we must make sure that we look at the system as described by Okekbukola in 2011, which we have now modified for the purposes of health professionals education. What did Okekbukola do? Okekbukola looked at nearly 50 variables over his 35 years. I'm sure we all know who Professor Okekbukola is. Peter Okekbukola is an educational scientist of repute, National Open University, LASUS. He's done a lot of work. And he designed this functional education system in 2011, where he looked at the input with all these variables, the process of teaching, and the output. But all this must be on the background of equity, efficiency, effectiveness, and relevance. None of this can be tinkered with individually and you expect to get a good output. But things must always be improved. So we've modified it and we've added outcome, because you can have an output. The most important thing is, what is the outcome? And the outcome is to make sure that we have improved retention of our graduates. There's absolutely no point training for export or breeding for export, as I will show. They must stay in country, and it must be sustainable. The economic and social development must be sustainable. As I was discussing with my brother, the Vice Chancellor, the template he has for financing this institution is the only way to go. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. Finally, we must be able to ensure that we have improved our human development index. That is, how many experts do you have in country to improve all sectors? And I have put in brackets there, and I'm sure High Chief Oguntime, you would know that in accountancy, when you put brackets, it's a negative. The negative is that if you train them too much, then they head out of the country, and I said you are just training them for export and breeding them for export. So, but we have added here to ensure that things are said, not only the effectiveness, efficiency, and relevance, but accountability. They must be able to ask you questions. You must know that. And corporate governance. That is from the private world. Corporate governance means you must have a transparent financial system that encourages people to invest in you, just as has been done with UNIMED. At the end of the day, this is the kind of health professional you want. He or she must have all these qualities. And it's not rocket science to know this is not easy. But they must have it. There is none of it, and that is why it is not put in sequence. It is put in a concentric circle to show that all these qualities must be inculcated in these health professionals for them to be able to function properly to global standards and to be locally relevant. What is Nigeria's challenges? Growth without development. We're growing, but we're not developing. And this is pictures of our 2019 white coat ceremony in the University of Ibadan, when our students transit from the preclinical school to the clinical school. We now have a formal white coat ceremony to let them know that they are leaving the old world behind and they are now joining a new world. And it is a little bit difficult, as usual, to see this man here. This is Professor Akinkugbe Distingusished. I always say you can identify him by his teeth. When he doesn't smile, he's so dark, you can't see him in photographs. But he was there. So these challenges include education and health being major contributors. Nigeria, as I've said, has not grown without development. Has grown but without development. And these are all the contributions. Please note that I have said here that there is a lack of investment in human capital as a major challenge. Nigeria does not value life, never mind valuing expert life. And that is a major problem, as I will show. Starting with the poor host environment, we have an unstable political climate. For those of us who are in government, you know that whatever they tell you to do is only as effective as the lifespan of that government. Everything you are told is 4 years. There's no way you can develop when you don't have any long-term plans. Gone are the days we used to have quinquennial plans, long-term plans. Even the federal government, they say that when you plan your budget now, it's for 3 years, and then every year. That is Executive Order number 7. But anybody who knows anything about financing knows it takes you 3 years to even know what you are doing. Yet you don't have more than 3 years. I have mentioned the issue of security concerns. Yes, and Ondo I don't need to tell you about that. You have heard your own security challenges. But what we do not realize is that the issue of migration affects populations, results in conflicts, and changes the epidemiology. When people move, they move with their diseases. I have always asked in Ibadan and other cities, when I see all these young boys, as I will show in a minute, that are riding Okada, I said, has anybody considered how they are going to get married? Who exactly do they go and meet at night? So when people say rape has increased, what in God's name did you expect? Young, able-bodied men, Ibadan says he has about 80,000 Okadas. What do you think they're going to do at night? This, of course, affects our health professionals' education and our health practice. Because there's no way you can do that and not have conflicts. To enter into the mix, you now have the lack of reward of hard work and merit, and no sanctions for bad behavior. And then you ask the students to learn. Learn what? They look at the hard workers, they are getting nowhere. They look at the, I'm sorry to say, don't let us mention, they look at those who they cannot identify as having done it. And overnight, the guys are rich. And then you say they should do surudere. Doesn't make any sense. It cannot happen. It is now money, power, and position at any cost. Not even all cost now, any cost. And of course, there is increasing poverty. As such, there is the erosion of our Omoluabi mantra. And medicine and other health professions rely on that Omoluabi mantra. I must be able to trust what my junior colleagues are telling me. They must be able to trust what I am telling them. The patient must be able to believe that the advice I'm giving you, particularly for those of us who are surgeons, I ask my students, how would you like it as you are sitting here if I tell you I'm going to open you from Cape to Cairo, look inside, put my hand inside and rummage, and when I find something, well, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't do it, close you up and wake you up, they all move back. Well, that's the decision the patient has to make. And the only reason he decides to allow us to do that is because he believes we are going to do the best for him. Particularly when the person is going to be asleep. It's not as if you can get up and say, Miyoshimo. Once we put you to sleep, you just pray you wake up on this side. Because sometimes you may wake up on the other side. So it's important that we understand the issue of values when we are designing our education system. Of course, we have poor basic infrastructure, inadequate power, inadequate water, no roads, no ICT, and poor sanitation. As an example, I thank the Vice Chancellor where we stayed last night. They had to put the generator on throughout the night. At the current fuel costs, I mean, they can't have this lecture every day. It's not possible. They'll be bankrupt. So, then we have the poor input systems. Simply put, garbage in, garbage out. We have poor infrastructure in our schools. Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children. 60% of 6 to 11-year-olds who attend primary schools, and of these 60%, 70 do not proceed to secondary school. But more interestingly, 30% of primary and junior secondary school teachers are unqualified. And even though they are unqualified, only 30% of them are present in school at 9 a.m. And as I always say, somebody then says, I should turn this person into a doctor. How? That's magic. It's not even a miracle. That's magic. It can't happen. When 70% of 10-year-olds do not understand English and cannot do simple arithmetic. And then we have the challenges to girl and boy child education. I found this very interesting. The girls are not commonly enrolled for reasons we know. But when they do better. The boys, they are enrolled, they don't stay. There's too much external pressure. So they drop out. And again, like I said, they look at it and say, oh boy, you are speaking English, you have no money. Yeah, the ones that are not speaking English have money. As I will point out, this is something my friend, the Vice Chancellor, will find out. A lot of people you go and meet for money to assist your medical school, they look at you and say, school. Yeah? That's just the nature of Nigeria. How? But we're now having increased females in higher institutions. We had to change 2 hostels from male hostels to female hostels. This has serious implications for the social structure. Serious implications. But nobody is looking at it. Everybody is just getting on and praising God. But look at this. We always like saying the Northeast and the North is where the problem is. Look at Southwest. We have nearly 20 million of children out of school, with 51% of them, 52% being males, 48%. It is the South-South. It's only North Central that is worse than us. The North is addressing its problem much better than us. We have a serious problem in the Southwest. But we're not looking at statistics. This is why we don't do audit. I had to get this from the World Bank. You can't find this in any Nigerian government institution. They have no clue. Where we were trying to find out the number of medical school spaces there was for an international study we were doing, we were given a different number by Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, MDCN, and NUC. And then when we spoke to the individual schools, they gave us a different number. But, you know, even better or worse was when I was provost. I could not tell you the exact number of students I had in College of Medicine. I could not. It was impossible. In the end, we said we were going to do student audit. But you know, as I've always told people, Nigeria has home trouble. You know, just as we were going to do the student audit, COVID hit, and that was the end of Solomon Grundy. I couldn't tell the number of students I had. It was incredible. They will tell you they are moving, you know, they are transferring, but it's human being now. There is no partial human being. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can't you count? Oh, very important issue. The percentage of children under 5 with stunted growth. It is well known that once children are not well fed under 5, there's only so much you can ask them to have intellectual capacity. Their development is stunted for life. Once you are starved until 5 years old, if you like, you can give them any amount of food after that. You are wasting your time. So that is why the school program is very important. Look at Nigeria. 36.8 million. But look at Indonesia. 30.8. Equal number of people, roughly equal population, but it's important. I want you to keep that in mind. But look at Ghana. And look at, you know, this is 2018 figures, percentage, not 36 million, 36.8%. Ghana has only 17.5%. The learning environment, is it any better? No. There is inadequate funding, as we've said. We have inadequate capacity for participation in institutions because they simply can't get in. We have only a 37.2 admission rate by JAMB in 2020. That is roughly 1 in 3 candidates that apply will get in. We have a poorly functioning health system. The 3-tier system, which was developed for angels, is being run by devils. Doesn't work. You cannot get the local government, state government, other division is artificial. Nothing works. They don't talk to each other. Everybody is manning his own silo, you know. So there's no cooperation, and then they don't cooperate with the health professionals training institution. But the best part, which is not in UNIMED, is the fight between colleges of medicine and their associated teaching hospitals. There is no doubt that one Olowayenu, because the truth of the matter is the provosts and the CMDs are from the same institution. My own CMD, I never had a problem with my CMDs because I understood that Olowayenu, so we had to do the necessary tutus to make sure that I kept the CMDs happy. But the fact of the matter is, the provost signs for the CMD to sit in his office. But in the way Nigeria does to scatter everything, they go and put the money with the CMD. So, because it is only from doing jobs, tasks, making patients well that you get money. So they start the colleges of medicine, and money is in the teaching hospital. And we all know this is Nigeria now. Ego na bros. So there's confusion everywhere. In fact, when I held the first workshop for CMDs and colleges of medicine in 2012, it was the first time they were coming nationally to sit and talk together. First time. We've tried to repeat it like yeah. Hasn't worked. What is the outcome of that? You have medical education and healthcare tourism worth $30 billion and $10 billion respectively flowing out of the country. That's $3 billion and $1 billion every year. Are the religious books not right? That from him who does not have, even the one he has will be taken from him. Say it is Nigeria that is supposed to be exporting money now. Maybe that one in dollars. One of the greatest drain on our foreign exchange is school fees. Because the health institutions, the universities, they have poor quality. So it is not free. But then what do? We just start proliferating institutions anyhow. Just in one day, April 6, 2022, 24 universities were approved. One day. 2 per each geopolitical zone. Institution. Ask my brother, how is it possible? We now have a total number of 215 universities. Private are 111. Yet the private are really established for profit. But I work with the NUC. I know they're thinking. They think that if we expand the number of institutions, we'll be able to increase capacity. But who is going to teach them? Is the government going to fund? The executive secretary of the NUC is one of the most forward-looking executive secretaries we've had. And I would like to believe that what he's doing is to make the situation impossible for government but to fund. But in the meantime, it's going to be difficult for those institutions. Of course, the current strike means you have an unstable academic calendar. Then you have the various professional bodies, and they give you conflicting signals. When I was provost, physiotherapy will come and talk like as though they don't know that there is nursing there. Nursing will talk like as if they don't know medicine is there, and everybody's just asking for money. So you have all sorts of conflicting directives. I just used to sit down there, laugh at them when they are going. I make sure we give them a package. No money, just give them something nice, and I continue with my work. Because it is impossible for you to ask me to set up a faculty of XYZ when I have only 6 staff. And those 6 staff, 2 of them have their spouses abroad, so they are hardly ever around. 3 of them have already decided that they are going, so they are seeing you on the corridor and say, Provost, my paper is with you. And the one that is going to be left is already looking at you and saying, Provost, you know, and you are asking me to set up a faculty. And I just wonder, where did they find you from? Of course, our students are extremely interesting people. They are completely disconnected from the reality of the world. There is a complete lack of connection between societal expectations and their own. A 16-year-old wants to ride a Hummer. You know, my students are always thinking of high-falutin things. I used to teach, you must think out of a box. So they would do something really outlandish, and I would say, why are you doing this? They say, but you asked us to think out of the box. I say, yes, I didn't tell you to throw the box away. Thinking outside of the box is to make sure that you know what the box is before you think out of it. But now they've kicked the box out, they've sat on the box is gone. They only want to travel out and make money. And of course, the teachers and trainers are no longer role models. Professor Akinkugbe, who we are celebrating today, he was our role model. We looked up to him. We looked up to the others. Nowadays, the students look at you and they just pity you. Oh my show, you will really belong here. You know, you are too old now. Nobody wants you. I am not asking me to be like you. Me. Oh God, please. Just give us a certificate. We'll be thinking about all the rest later. So, of course, there is a lack of focus and an unwillingness and transmitting to an inability to learn, because learning is an active process. It's not passive. You must want to learn. You must want to be like Professor Akinkugbe. You must want to be like Professor Oshitokun. You must want to be like those. So when you have nothing to look at, you are looking at Davido, Naira Marley, and all those kinds of things. You can't learn medicine. And we studied this in 2004. These are teachers as role model. Even then, those who admitted, nearly 40% of our students in 2004 told us they were not looking at us as role models. This was not true. It was more like double that, but they were scared. So it was half the number that were bold enough to do that. But 77% of them said once they finish, they will graduate. In 2004. But the truth of the matter is that it's 100%. The learning environment is made worse by the unending strikes, both in health and in education. The government say the unions are self-serving. The unions say that if it wasn't for the agitations, there will be no improvement in the universities. The fact of the matter is that there is truth in both of that. We've been discussing that. Then COVID came, and that was just the end of Solomon Grundy, because it just scattered everything. We had to change how we trained. We had to close schools. We didn't know what to do. About the only thing we knew was wear mask. That was the only thing. And I commissioned this painting when I was in Provost to commemorate that. That the only lasting effect of COVID will be wearing mask. But it really interfered and disrupted a lot of processes, not the least of which was the education and health sector. Of course, as I've said, there is poor social responsiveness and poor accountability of not just the health professionals training institutions, but of educational systems, particularly tertiary institutions worldwide. The truth of the matter is universities are not secondary schools. Universities are only established to ensure that there is progress in the development of the economy of their host environment. That is our only function. That is why we do research to find out what is going on and then propose or propound theories as to how it should be resolved, and then there will be an improvement. We're not supposed to teach you algebra and all those things. You go to secondary school to learn all of that. That is why we give lectures, we don't teach you. But that's not what is happening in Nigeria. And that started from our inception when our health university curricula were given to us by colonialists who sat down in Cambridge and Oxford and designed something for you. And the governments have continued that since. As a result, there's a complete disconnect between the health professionals training institutions and development plans. Interestingly, the medical schools are not part of Nigeria's health summit. We are not part of Nigeria's health council, or whatever they call it. We are not there. I used to argue with them. We are supposed to train the people who will implement these policies. We are not there to tell you whether what you're asking us to do is possible or not. What all governments do is to do stakeholder summits. They just call all of us to Abuja, sometimes to Dubai if you are lucky. Nothing happens. 80%, according to Okebukola, of the recommendations are not implemented. But actually, the fact of the matter is that 90% of the recommendations are the same. You might as well just bring what you said last time and say, because they don't implement. So you are just saying the same thing over and over again. As I said, there's no data. How do you make policy without data? An institution I shall not mention got money from SDG, and they refurbished the whole place. I was looking at them when I went there to go and lecture. So I asked the CMD. He said, oh, I got this from Abuja. I said, hey. He said, well, no. He said, they're doing very well. I said, so I asked him, who is going to pay for the electricity for all these air conditioners they're installing? He looked at me. I hear he has now told them to shut all the air conditioners down. I said, I don't understand it. You were struggling to pay electricity when you had 6 air conditioners in this department. Now they've given you 30. All for procurement. I mean, you have to go away with it, don't you? Did you now occur to you that you are going to use electricity to run this? So he called me from the institution and said, you're a witch. I said, I'm not a witch. I told you the truth. Did you not count? 6 to 30 is times 5. Jolo. So there's absolutely no culture for collecting data. What is worse, the government is not interested in your data. They have their own data, wherever they get it from. So even when you go and meet them and you go and give them data, they just look at you and say, your English is too much. They say, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. As such, there's no doubt that the government policies lack academic input. And that is why most of them have no real effort. But to make matters worse, that has meant that universities do not understand their roles. Even we, academics, are now beginning to see ourselves as teachers. You don't want to do teaching. The person coming into university is somebody who wants to learn. If you can learn, fine. If you can't learn, too bad. There was a slide that I took out. I used to tell my students, we do not develop dull children here. Once you are dull, that's your problem. University is not meant to develop dull children. There are special schools for that. University is for somebody who is interested to learn. And that is why they bring academics. I can tell you for free, Professor Akinkugbe never taught us. He showed us the way he said things, but sit down and start teaching you medicine. He never did. He was a mentor. He was a master. We watched how he did things, and then we would go back and do what he did. He didn't sit us and say, put the stethoscope here. Can you, like the students will now be asking. In fact, one of the students in an institution I went to examine did not use her stethoscope. And when I asked her why, she said, excuse me, sir, I used it on myself too. And this man was dirty. I said, But you can't blame her. In the good old days, we used to have stethoscopes on the ward. Now there's nothing. So these are issues that we need to look at. And of course, I've already mentioned the issue of non-autonomous governance of institutions, which I said my friend is very lucky he doesn't have. Normally, you have government breathing down your neck because they have a political agenda. And you have to understand it. And it can be difficult to negotiate if you are not careful. Now, the final crunch of challenges is that it is only in Nigeria that we think things just happen. The Oyinbo countries are already responding to us. They know that our education system is collapsing. So they are designing short courses online to teach specific skills and accrediting special laboratories. In 3 years, you have a BSc of University of XYZ from London. 7 years today, you are still struggling in Ibadan. And those certificates are internationally tenable. In fact, they came to me, 2 have come to me to help them set it up. Initially, I refused. But then I looked at the fact that it is taking 7 years to do physiotherapy or 4 years. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So that is a problem. And then what are we getting in return? The same Oyinbo people are now telling us, you know you can't train doctors. You better accept these non-physician clinicians. These are people who are carpenters, bricklayers. They have no formal medical education whatsoever. You just teach them, this is how to remove a cataract. This is how to do a specific, this is how to deliver a baby. This is how to do that. And they're the ones that 48 of 52 African countries have already signed that they can practice, especially in their rural areas. But we know Nigeria, are they staying in the rural areas? Of course not. That's number one. Are they going to stick with what you have taught them? Of course not. And then secondly, like I've always told them, okay, you taught him how to remove cataract. When he gets there and it's not cataract, And it's not cataract, I have always said, as a urologist, I can teach anybody, including my dear old mother who I love dearly. I can teach her how to remove a prostate. It is when she gets there and the prostate is not following the anatomy that I taught her that there's a problem. But this is what they are asking us to accept. So our experts are leaving, and we are now getting poorly qualified people. So, what is the end result of that? Brain drain. But I wish it was just brain drain, which I will not dwell on. We all know what brain drain is. People are leaving to high-income countries for various reasons. 6 years, 4,500 doctors. What is the excess mortality? This is the number of people who died, calculated by the GMCO. It's not calculated by us. Who wouldn't have died? 3.1 billion is what we have lost from our health professionals that have gone abroad in those 6 years. And we are losing $650 million annually on the loss of return on investment. When we calculated about 10 years ago how much it costs to train a medical student, a medical student costs about 1.5 million 10 years ago. They were paying 45,000. And then they go abroad. No loans, nothing. And then they go and start buying Rolls Royces and telling us that they are making it. Their colleagues abroad are paying 200,000 naira per year. By the time they graduate, they owe nearly 1 million. And we are happy to let them go. I was very happy to read, I had already prepared this lecture, I was going to add it, that now the federal government finally have had an epiphany that they must now bond anybody that wants to go abroad that you are coming back. I don't know how long it took them to do that. It's our taxpayers' money. How can you finish training, FOC, and then you go abroad and stay there and then you say that you are making money? I don't have anything against those who traveled abroad. I traveled abroad too. But when you're a health systems person, you must understand that there is a cost. There is a cost. We must calculate those costs. And of course, the issue of security makes matters worse, and then it discourages the students to do that. They're not listening to us. When I tried to, well, I did succeed, to introduce health professionals training levy, and I called the parents, and I said, look at how this institution is. We need to improve. One of the parents looked at me and said, Pharaoh, let your heart be soft. These children, when they finish, they will go abroad and learn proper medicine. I said, so exactly what are they learning here? Of course, the poor environment and inadequate health systems no doubt will fuel the brain drain. You can't ask people to stay when they have the skills. People want them outside. You are killing them here. There is a colleague of mine who I invested in heavily. There is ASU strike. He has not been paid for 4 months. He got a letter, $6,000 per month. When he came to me, fortunately my brother who knows him called from America, and I was telling him what was happening. And my brother said to me, Olubumi, if he doesn't go, I will call his children to sue him for child abuse. So, we not only have brain drain, we have brain in the drain. The brains that are left behind, they are overworked, less support, both at work and at home. They're emotionally drained. And at the end of the day, they become drained brains. Because there is lack of reward of merit, there is brain fatigue, and there is ultimately burnout. We have a serious situation. And where does this all add up to? This is Nigeria and Indonesia. You know, I told you to keep in mind the fact that Indonesia has 31% children out of. Look at Nigeria. Well, let's look at Indonesia. This is the number of higher institutions going up gradually. Look at their secondary school education. Please note that it rose along with the number of higher institutions, and it is now overtaking it because they understand that you must have good input. Look at their Human Development Index. This is what I said. It's going up. Look at their life expectancy. Please don't be fooled that it's below. Our own is below 60. Their own is above 75. Huh? Please don't be fooled. This is the scale. But the real thing that I want us to look at, look at poverty. Look at their own poverty. In fact, I only had to show as a true academic the current figures. The older figures show that in Nigeria, poverty is going up, which it is. We all know it's going up. Right now, less than 70% of more than 70% of our population earn less than $1.5 per month. World Bank figures. Not only that, you say you want to transform medical education or health education. Look at our primary, this is 2014, 2015. This is 2017, 2018. Please look closely. You'll see that we were even somewhere close to Indonesia, not close, but look at our health and primary education. Look at us. Now it's disappearing. Look at our higher education learning in 2015. Look at it. Dropped. We have dropped everywhere. So, of course, our innovation is dropping, and our global competitiveness is dropping. Like I said, because we don't count, we think these things don't matter. But they do matter. And ultimately, my final slide on this, in this phase, the type grip of extreme poverty. Look at 1981. All of 38 or 48 years ago. No, 38 years ago. Look at Nigeria. Number 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at Indonesia. In 38 years, look, Indonesia is not here anymore. That is the importance of this and that. But where is our dear beloved country? We have jumped to number 2. So when we think these things don't matter, it is because we do not do the research. We do not tally the numbers. We just keep telling ourselves that it is okay. No, it is not okay. It is far from okay. What are the imperatives? Now, playing on what I've learned from Professor Akinkugbe, the title was Imperatives of Transforming Medical Education. And that is what I've done. What are the imperatives? What are things that you must consider? But now we must talk about the imperatives for, which are the things we must do. At least we must consider doing. Again, this is a graduating class. I can assure you 90% of them are no longer in the country. We always liked having a photograph just to see, make ourselves happy that we are contributing to the human development of this country, even as we know we are contributing to UK. So, we cannot simply focus on curricular reforms. Even this year, I have worked with the NUC and we have changed the BMAS to CCMAS. BMAS is Benchmark Minimum Academic Standards. Now we have Core Curriculum Academic Standards. I said from the depths, for you to consider transformation, you must look at it from either the depths of superficiality. Are we just going to just gloss over it and tinker with things as they've always done? Or are we going to take it from the depths of reality? What is the reality? And this is the reality. For you to have health professionals' education, you not only need education and healthcare system, you need health security, you need government policy, you need funding, you need social responsibility. And look at this, infrastructure, transportation, industry, all this must surround. You must handle all of those. For you to achieve this health professionals' education when you want to transform it. So you must have a multi-pronged strategy and you must consider things long-term. You must first of all have social transformation. Without any doubt, we must transform the community, or the community must be transformed. There must be mass reorientation to get our Moluabi values back. If we don't have it, forget it. And in this, the family unit is critical, but we must also consider the cultural, the traditional, and the religious and political structures, which is why I'm glad about the array of people who are here today. We need everybody. It's not just to grace the seats. It's because they all have a role to play. Once they don't do that, forget it. We're just writing, as Professor Yejuro would say, interesting essays. Okay, you have so many papers published, so many citations. As I will show in a minute, what does it add up to? It's just all those papers, they are using it for Google and Poly. At the various, when you go to where I buy my Poly, you'll always see University of Ibadan papers there. That's what they use it for. We must transform government structures. They must learn that things must be decentralized. We must have buy-in. We must have good governance. And we must have purposeful policies that are actually meant to do something, particularly on the long term. It cannot be for 4 years, let's just do something, procurement. We must transform the infrastructure. Our infrastructure has nearly collapsed. We were not hardly part of the first revolution, we were just dragged into it. We didn't even understand that there was a revolution going on. Now we are barely understanding the fourth, and everybody is preparing for the fifth. Power supply. Please, for God's sake, power. Nigeria has candle. We need real power, real electricity, and stable electricity. You cannot run institutions on generators. You cannot run industries on generators. This is very important. Not to talk of our rural and rail network. Please, we must end these ongoing trade unions when we are trying to transform the human capitals. Let the government and the unions shake hands on the ground if they don't want to do it in the outside world. You know, these two trees are shaking hands here. You know, they should shake hands. Please, can we get back to school and get back to work? We must decrease the entrenched poverty and disparity in the society by improving employment and entrepreneurial abilities. There is no point telling somebody we can't employ you, go and start a factory when there's no light, no power. Can't happen. Even a vulcanizer can't survive. Not to talk of diesel of 8.15 naira per liter. We must have student support programs. We must address our peculiarities in boy and girl child education. And we must increase capacity and access to tertiary institutions. But as I have emphasized, we must increase number and maintain quality. Otherwise, there will just be degree awarding institutions. I'm sure we've all had stories of first-class graduates of English that cannot read. We have first-class graduates of XYZ, they can't do it. You're a computer science expert, you cannot operate a computer. That's not what we want, and that's not what we need. In transforming human capital, we must work on our own. We must use more ICT, but we must develop local educational material. There is no country that develops on the language of another man. As Malcolm Montgomery said, the clutching of foreigners' gods is the hallmark of a spiritually conquered people. If we cannot converse in our own language and teach in our own language, we cannot develop. We do not understand the nuances of language. I was listening on the radio once, and we now have a problem. We have back translation of English into Yoruba. So we had a guy who was talking about football, and he was talking about ICC, and he said, this is in Yoruba, Coach, àwọn shooting star, ó ní kò ní dáa fún tóun bá sọ pé. Then the guy stopped because he understood what he had said. That kò ní dáa fún. I mean, the guy was cursing himself. Whereas he had just translated English into Yoruba. It will not be good for me to say. That's all he had done. But an even more interesting back translation of English was when I had a set of students, and I asked a delightful young girl to examine a patient. And she went to examine this patient. This was a man who had pain in his tummy, abdominal pain. And she went to him and she was going to examine it. And I said, no. Have you taken consent? So she said, no. So I said, take consent. So she started speaking English. And the man looked at her and said, mi ò gbóyìnbó. So she looked at him and said, Baba, ẹ jọ̀ọ́, mo fẹ́ tẹkùn yín. For those who don't speak Yoruba, she had bank translated and said, Baba, I want to press your stomach, which actually is what she's going to do. But that's not what we say. Baba, mo fẹ́ yẹ kun yín wò, I want to examine. Of course, the man retorted, ìwọ mà ní kànú, ṣé kùn tó ń dùn mí ló fẹ́ tẹ̀? Immediately the man retorted, the abdomen I came to you that is hurting me is what you want to press? Press? Onikano, Ajebi doctor, what over there? Bad translation. You cannot teach in a language that is different from the language of processing in the community. We really have to get back to that. Our modest contributions to that is patient information leaflets which are out there. And of course, we've started off with my colleague, Professor Duro Adeleke, and a couple of others. We've started by producing books in Yoruba. And the other thing we found is that in developing these local language resources, we actually had to develop the language. Not only did we have to create new words, because they didn't exist. What is the Yoruba for flexor digiti minimi? What is the Yoruba for arterioles? We had to describe what is the Yoruba for vein. What is the Yoruba for artery? What is then, if you say Ishan, what is the Yoruba for nerves? How do you distinguish between vein and artery? This is actually why I say we're growing, we're not developing. Because in undertaking that particular exercise, we found out that we had to really think. For instance, if I ask anybody here what the Yoruba for bladder is, you are likely to say, that's because you've read it out there. Before, ile ito, it was what people were saying. But ito kingbele kankan. It just is a storage. And then when we ask, if we had to ask you what the Yoruba for urethra is. So we had to develop this language. We had to talk to babalawos. We had to talk to the butchers, find out what there were animal considerations. But more importantly was that it was an intellectual exercise for us. And it took us many months. What is the difference between onion and omu? We had to go to Oduifa. Because one is lactating breast and one is non-lactating breast. So you are actually going to develop your own language and develop your use of it and ensure that people are involved. Instead of just all this English that we actually don't understand. As Fela said, they gave us the language we don't understand. Starting with when the student looks at you and says you. It has to be enyi, at least hakoko. But when he said you said, problem has started. So and for the children, for the students, we have to improve their living conditions, youth participation programs, and we must introduce tracking. But we must stem and reverse the migration of unskilled youths. They are dragging the human capital down. The government has to do something about that. Otherwise, fortunately, we are all living here together. As in living, not living. In transforming the health professionals' training institutions, the strategies must include redefining our role. Government must accept that the academics that they are paying their salaries directly or indirectly must contribute to national development by giving us policies. That way, you do two things. The United States government, who I advise, would never do anything in a foreign country without going through their own institutions. Never. And their institutions get most of the money. You've heard about the help with HIV. 75% of the money spent on HIV stayed in Harvard University. 75%. So why are we not using our own institutions? Especially since these institutions now contact us. People like us, we benefit, I won't lie, because when the federal government says, come and do something, they take me to Abuja, they give me 16,000 per day. I always ask them, exactly which hotel do you know in Abuja that I can stay for 16,000? They say that's federal government instruction. Okay, no problem, so I won't come now. But when Oyibo invites me, they won't give me the money, or at least they'll pay me where it's not me and people who trade at night that will be meeting together. I don't have to worry about Okada. So, who will you work for? And the most important thing is that they then own the data. We went for a human resource for health meeting in Accra, Ghana. It was WHO that was presenting Nigeria's figures. WHO. And the Nigerian representative was saying, we call her Mama HRH. She's the one that always helps us with all this data. We don't have any data. I was aghast. I was aghast. We have no data. So it is what they tell us. It is what they tell us. So that must be changed. And we must ensure that there is good governance and effective leadership. And it is true, the fish rots from the head. Once your vice chancellor is effective, entrepreneurial and all that, he will drag like minds to him. If he's not, he won't. There's nothing fantastic about that. As the Greeks say, people do not see things as they are, only as they are. For COVID, all we saw was procurement. Nigeria is the only country where our economy went up with COVID initially, because all we were doing was buying. They built isolation centers without toilets. They were afterthoughts. We can't do these things and expect to transform anything. We must adopt complex, collective adaptive leadership mantra. That means everybody is a leader. You give somebody a task, it's his job to deliver. He doesn't deliver, fire him. Like I was saying when we were coming from the guest house, the guy in the guest house was a good guy, so I stretched out to him. And my people said, oh, he must have impressed you. I said, yes, I work hard for my money now. Why should I work hard for my money and then give it to you for free? A denier now, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. It is only if I get money for free that I can give it to you for free. If I work hard for my money, then you must work hard for your money too. It is the same. If you have good leadership, they're going to make good demands of the people working with them. And in so doing, they will choose the right people. But if it is Ogata, well, no problem. Anybody you bring, we will use. That has to change. And of course, we must refocus our academic and professional staff. We must stop seeing ourselves as secondary school teachers. There's nothing I dislike more than all these children. Which children? Half of them are married, whether legally or not. So how are they children? They all have PVC. What is child about them? No. And that in so doing, we do not demand the responsibility that is necessary from them. They must know they're responsible for their own future. Once you haven't done what you need to do in medical school or physiotherapy or whatever at the university, that's it, you are done. When you go out, you'll forever be begging. And of course, I was lucky I had an effective management team when I was provost. And I can tell you that these women who I called Amazons when I was provost, they ran the school. I was going up and down the whole place, and people kept on asking me, who is running the school when you're away? You're just traveling. I said, the same people who run it when I'm there. They never allowed me to do anything. They just come, oh God, this is blah, blah, blah. So I concentrated on policies and finding money, which is what my friend does. You come to him, I was listening to him, say, how many air conditioners do we need here? 3, bring them here. That his own is to find the air conditioner. He's not, I didn't hear him say, Mboletira, that no supply. Baba, to receive those supply in your. That's his vice chancellor. His job is to find the right person and then find the money. Liaise with the visitor, liaise with that. But once you do not have all that, then you have a problem. Of course, sustainable funding, without any doubt. Everybody must play a part. Government, parents. As I used to tell the parents, when these children graduate and they want to treat you, don't forget it's them you will call. And I'm not going to share my resources with them. They are not going to share their resources with me. Therefore, they must invest in their own children. And then we'll ask other people to support us. Alumni, high network individuals, we'll have bursaries, we'll have scholarships. And to make sure that the money keeps flowing, we must restore financial credibility. We must have financial structures that make sure there is no leakage. As provost, I made sure that all the monies we brought in, I was not signatory to it. So when they said you stole money, I said, go and look for where I stole the money now. I didn't sign 1 naira out, 1 naira like this. And we brought in significant amount of money. But it encouraged people because they saw that once there's financial transparency, once they knew I wasn't going to dip my hand into it, then people kept coming up. And by the time we were leaving, in the 4 years, we had raised nearly 2 billion naira for the 4 years. Even our alumni, who had only given about 20 million before then, gave us 250 million naira. In the 4 years, we repaired the entire students' hostel with alumni money and other things too. But the first thing was they made sure that there was financial credibility. My own class, I was their treasurer. When I became provost, the first thing they said is, come out. And brought somebody else. I said, why? They said, that's how you say you spend our money to buy electricity. Yet my class gave significant amounts of money. So financial credibility is important. And because of the structures we put in place in UI, it was such that we had a B rating with the EU and the NIH, which was higher than the institutions around us and attracted grants to us. And it was in using those monies that we were able to raise ourselves from number 12 to number 1 in sub-Saharan Africa in the space of 3 years. It's not really rocket science, to be honest. You just need people who are focused, and you have a team that is around you, and you have money. No money, forget it. So that is why I think I mentioned the UI. We in Ibadan, we have health professionals training levy. We are also open because of that. But I'm very impressed with the UNIMED template, and I congratulated your Vice Chancellor, because that's the only way you are going to stay awake. So I think it deserves a round of applause. As an aside, I also told him that Ondo people are better than Ibadan people. Me, they nearly stoned me when I said I was raising those levies. So, and there was a riot. I almost didn't survive the attempt. So, going quickly, we must ensure that we have safe and secure environment, increase our research capacity. The Vice Chancellor is already doing that. And we must improve our healthcare institutions, make sure that we have primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions that are working very well. We must revamp support for our students. The picture here is from our students. When they saw what we were doing, they themselves joined in. And you can see they realized they were future leaders. And they themselves knew they needed to acquire all this. This is not my poster, this is them. But you need all these things. We must reorient them, introduce innovative courses to make sure they can be employed. There's no point teaching archaic medicine or archaic studies. Please, can we do something modern so that they can have skills that they can sell? And they must work with industry. And most importantly, and most difficult, is to reintroduce mentoring programs. I will spend 1 second on that. If we don't mentor our students, they are helping us mentor them. There are numerous programs by numerous institutions and numerous professional bodies that are going over our heads directly to our students. My specialty, urology, the American Urological Association has what they call urology, AUA Academy. SIU has SIU University, that's the Society International of Urology. They have SIU University. The EAU, that's the Europeans, also have, and they're talking to our residents directly. And once they've done that, they're the ones who are going to give them reference, so you are no longer relevant. So we really must get the mentoring program there. And of course, cultism and drugs must be there. Zero tolerance for sexual harassment. That does not need any explanation. But I caution, if we go too far with this issue of sexual harassment, then you are going to kill the personal relationships that develop between clinicians that starts at the student years. You don't have to, we must be careful. Otherwise, if you do not have a personal relationship with your master, it just teach you superficially. So we need to be careful about that. Knowledge economy, we must get as institutions to get into the knowledge economy. We must ramp up their social contract, i.e. they must do more in the community, both in terms of research and development programs in the community, and providing a closer relationship between town and gown. We must rekindle our Afrocentric orientation. That is why I'm wearing national dress, not a suit and tie. I've removed those ones. It's not going to happen again. I'm a Yoruba man. I'm going to dress like a Yoruba man. Somebody said to me, how can you be wearing national dress and then wear gown? So I quoted that Bishop Olufosoye. He said in his book that I swore on my ordination I will use one book. But when I realized that my people didn't understand it, he went to re-swear. I will use this book and other. The book he first swore was Book of Common Prayer. People didn't understand it. Thee, thou, you in Kokala understand. So he went back and did an African one and then swore that he will use the Common Prayer and one other. So I'm going to change. I'm going to wear English dress and one other, depending on which one is appropriate. Interestingly, this was what the University College Ibadan was founded for. We were actually supposed to delve into research and practice in Africa. That was why they set us up. But we've moved away, and in my good old University of Ibadan, they still have Department of European Studies. Can't work. We must redirect our research, training, and service, introduce arts and medicine courses, and strengthen collaboration. This painting was done by one of our students in response to a competition as to how we want to espouse this, and as you can see, he said Africa to the world. We must have partnership with our stakeholders. We must have this handshake with all these people. We must know that they own the institution. We must let them know they own the institution. There are three types of giving. There's charity, which is what you have to spare. You don't care about it. There's philanthropy, which is what you give that you think affects you, so you look at it a lot more closely. But there's investment, which you give a lot, but since you are now investing, you make sure that the person you have given that investment spends it properly. That is where we must be at. We must get these people to invest and to support various. Well, as provost, I used to tell them, please don't waste my time giving me small money. Money that I can afford to put down, don't give me. Give me money that you are going to feel. So you are going to want to find out how I spent it. And that will send vibrations down the whole chain. Because now people are looking at it. That's corporate governance. And we must do that. And I ask, this is the top 10 top 10 most valuable companies in Nigeria. Which one of them is supporting institutions functionally? Emory University is supported almost 50% by Coca-Cola. Most American universities have a major industry supporting them. I can't remember which one is supported by Xerox. So all this trillion, Airtel, all our money, where are they? What are they doing with it? But they won't give us money because we don't have all those things I've mentioned before, and we don't pay them. Nigerian breweries was spending, as of 2002, when I checked, 35,000 naira per year retraining graduates to their standard. And I used to tell them, why don't you give that money to the institutions for them to train them to that standard for you? What they said was clear. There is no accountability. They can't give money to this vice chancellor. When they come to the next vice chancellor, we look at you and say, oh, well, it was far to see you gave that money. My name is Olaokpa. You can't do that. They must know that it is continuous. So we must get these people. When I saw this, I nearly went, how can now go to 4.7 trillion? And my friend is looking for how much? This is where the money is. And we've got to go after it. And we've got to let government know that they have to make it worth these companies' while to support institutions. That is the only way it can work. Because the government has no money. We can shout from now until Jesus comes home. Then we can now transform our curriculum. And when we transform our curriculum, which is overhauling, please, we have to understand that it has to be Africanized. We found out that our students paid more attention when we did the arts and medicine workshop than they did to all the things we were doing that they felt were Oyibo. When we talked about storytelling, they should be beating drums. Even the patients, everybody was very happy. All the patients that would be grumbling when we were in clinic, once we brought the drum into the clinic and we asked them to draw and draw, everybody was attentive. For those 3 hours, nobody made noise. The next week, when this had finished, they said, hey, we must get people to learn in the way they understand. That does not mean that you cannot have multicultural. That does not mean you don't do global standards. Interestingly, this guy in the center, after I had struggled to try and get him to have a formal relationship with the University of Ibadan, which didn't happen, Guess where the guy is? The guy is in Florida. Doing exactly this in Florida. What they told me, can you imagine? Mama Ludu, the clinic keyboard. No, we can't have that too. Now, do you know the spirit in the drum that is beating? Spirit. Spirit. Okay, spirit. Am I being spirit? So, we must incorporate community-based and team-based learning, because in so doing, people learn how to work together. CBME must be adopted, and as I've said, essential. So, we've done this in Ibadan. My last, coming to the end of my lecture, we've done this in Ibadan. And we had an opportunity to transform our curriculum that had been there essentially since 1948, apart from a minor revision in 1962. Took us 10 years because of the resistance. 10 years. Because people kept on saying to me, what are you saying? We taught you medicine. Now you are saying we don't know how to teach. Oh my God. Yeah, but eventually, we managed to get it through. And it was also interesting, because this I must say to encourage my good friend. This was born out of when I went to FEMA, and the Oyibos were telling us they needed to teach us how to do curriculum reform. And I told them, I have a problem. You see, I'm an Ibadan man. I only understand simple things. If I'm an Ibadan man, and you are in Philadelphia, how can you in Philadelphia know what is better for me in Ibadan than I that am in Ibadan? I just had a problem with it. I couldn't process it. So do you think this is Tarzan? When, we had somebody come from America that came to tell us how to talk to elephants. It's not going to work. We will do it. There are global standards. So they refused to fund us. And we had a bet. I told them we would do it without their help. And they said we couldn't. Well, we did. But that's not the story. The story was because what we did was acceptable internationally. That's where Oyibo is different. They were just about to start when we finished. Oyibo, they just grabbed their own and they just did something on top of it. They didn't argue with us. So this notion that nothing we do is acceptable is not true. It's not. Just do it in a way that is internationally acceptable. And we didn't do it speaking English. What we did was essentially all what I've told you. They immediately took it, and that's what led to experiential professional activities. And then we topped it with essential physician duties. It became a race. But if you do something wishy-washy, nobody's going to listen to you. It has to be of standards. And we did it all in Ibadan. We had no foreign assistants. We had people from other institutions coming in. But we didn't know Oyibo. I didn't agree. I'm a Yoruba man. So, this is the book. I've given the Vice Chancellor a copy. I know he has it. And we changed our curriculum to this, competency-driven, horizontal. We increased our contact time between our teachers and students. We introduced small group teaching, and we created new units. We followed this model. I've mentioned it before. And we did it in 5 phases, these 5 phases, but we really focused on our community. And then we looked at our students and lecturers and institutions, and then we changed that. And this is what we came up with. We had learning objectives. We did this for all our courses, all. I nearly drove some people crazy, and they nearly drove me crazy too, defining all of this, because it was new in those days. People kept on saying, Shebi, we are teaching. What do you mean we should define the objective? If the objective, Shebi, they want to be doctors. Say, no, what exactly do you want to teach? Because if you don't do this, then how do you know how to measure what you are teaching? And how do you know how to set exams? And how do you know how to assess whether your students have learned? So we had to do this, and it was a problem. It took us 10 years. In fact, some people did not speak to each other for God knows how long afterwards. But in the end, we finished. And it looks like this, just the graphic representation. I only show this because one of the great things we achieved, which has helped us particularly with strikes, is that we now have definite endpoints. Before, for every year, before whenever there was a strike, we didn't know where to start our students, or when there was a problem. And we didn't know how to transit students who are not doing well out of medicine. It was always a problem. But with this new model, at the end of every year, we know how many credits you need to have, we know where you are, so you can go and do something else. And if there's a stoppage, we know exactly where you stopped, and we can restart. So that has really helped us. the other thing we did, which has now been adopted by NUC across their academic standards, is the prioritization of knowledge. There's just too much knowledge out there. You can't ask students to know everything. They need to know everything. I said they can't know everything. This is the whole world. They can go and practice medicine in Russia. So I used to answer, do they understand Russian? And when they get there, they should go and learn what is peculiar to Russian medicine. This is Ibadan. They will learn Ibadan medicine priority. That helped us reduce the volume of work on the students and on the teachers so they could focus. And everything else was now done on a should know and may know basis. So that really helped us. And it's important. So we then evaluated the whole process. As I said, you must always do audit. And you must do it pari passu with the revision. You need feedback so that as you are going along, they are giving you information and you are improving. We did a formal evaluation after 2 years, and the conclusion was that it was acceptable. What were our successes with the curriculum revision process? We had better cooperation. We improved the academic and clinical skills of the students. We increased the number of distinctions at second MD. So these were a rarity, but now they are more or less commonplace. And of course, we have an increased number of students winning international research and academic prizes, and they are not coming back. The challenges we've had: inadequate funding and capacity building as usual, limited technological and infrastructural support. We had to adapt, but because it is our own, we were able to adapt the curriculum. We knew how we made it, so whenever we came across a challenge, we knew how to bypass that challenge because we didn't adopt it. Of course, several universities that we had links with fought with me, the international institutions. They said, look, we will give you our curriculum, we will help you. I said, I don't want. We will do our own. And that is what helped us with it. After the initial resistance by the faculty, as you read in the lecture text, the faculty really struggled because for 4 years we were running 2 streams of curricula because you must graduate with the curriculum that you came into. So even though we were starting a new curriculum, they had to teach the new students the new curriculum, and they had to teach the old students with the old curriculum, and this faculty were not happy with me at all. Fortunately, it was owned by the school, so they could direct the efforts at the So the first 2 sets felt they were guinea pigs. And then the older students felt we had abandoned them, that we were concentrating on the younger ones. So it was a bit tricky. What are the pitfalls? The elephant in the room. The first thing is, who owns the revision process? Is it the university? You don't have that problem here, but is it the university? Is it the college? Is it the funder? Because we had some institutional grant. Who are the stakeholders? So we must do shared ownership. Who funds it? We must have local, national, regulatory, and international funding. Who directs it? Oh, this was a major fight. Is it the VC? Is it the provost? Is it the director of medical education? You know, we all like title. So fight up and down, but we managed. This is where whoever you ask to do it must be a people's person. If it's not a people's person, forget it. I know the number of times I was shuttling between the provost and the vice chancellor in those days. In fact, at the end of the day, we had to launch the curriculum twice. We first of all launched it in the College of Medicine, then UI launched it. Let's shall launch it, let's get it done. And of course, whoever you choose must be competent. And then who implements the curriculum? And this is where the ownership comes in. We had well over 150 of our faculty staff involved in that curriculum process, because they used to, when we finish, they say, Shebi, when you finish, Shebi, it is us that we ask to implement this curriculum. We will wait for you. But the problem was each department had a representative on the committee. So when it came to implementation, they were the ones who were the town criers, and they solved that problem as best as they could. Dr. Dukokwe's head is still on his shoulders. So, what does it all add up to? Has this all been just a nice, interesting holiday? And or should I have spent my time just looking at that? Well, it's not an original. What does it add up to was the topic of Professor Adegoke Olubumo, a world-renowned, I think was the first professor of mathematics in Ibadan, certainly in his valedictory lecture. He was one who asked, what does it all add up to? All these things you're doing, what's the equals to? So, the truth of the matter is that transformation of health professionals' education faces unique challenges and demands unique solutions. But we must understand that it requires transformation of all sectors. Yes, mainly the education and health sectors, but all sectors. And the process must start from the family units and the communities. Once you are ending up with bad input, the output can only be bad. And we must understand that our overall goal is national socio-economic development. It's not just teaching students. And they must stay in country to ensure that there is sufficient manpower. And that requires changing of various national policies. So government must be involved. That is why I'm glad the government is here. Otherwise, they're not going to get return on their investment. So actually, Mr. Governor, sir, I am not begging you. Because at the end of the day, it's you that you are investing. I've just shown you. You finish training all these people, they will not stay. It's you that you lose. And unless you are going to follow them, it is whoever is left that will look after you, including the non-professional people. So we must understand. Yes, we must be courteous, but we must understand that we are all involved, and we are all going to either be beneficiaries of the successes or sufferers of the non-successes. It's not going to happen. And we must understand that, no, we're not just training for export. We're breeding for export. I'm a urologist. One of my greatest problems is the number of old men who have none of their children around. It's a major problem. One of my patients said to me in Yoruba, and like I keep telling people, have you ever seen a horse going into a house that is on fire? The Yoruba say, that is if the house is not on fire. If your house is on fire, the horse will refuse to enter that house. So if we do not make our country livable, the children will leave. Now they're children. They will leave. And the better you train them, the better it is for them to get employment abroad. And the less you have them having a national identity, the less they have in common with you. And indeed in common with the country. They have more in common with the chink that they went to school with, the Norwegians. They look at you and they say, what are you talking about? So we need to understand that this calls for a real national revival if we must survive. So it's up to us. In resolving the disparity, can we stop talking about equality? This is what we keep doing in Nigeria. Everything must be shared equally around geopolitical zones. That's not true. If you do things equally, this guy will never watch the match. You must practice equity. This guy does not need any stool. It is this guy that take this stool and give it to this guy. This guy will do with one. This guy needs two. This guy needs none. In Nigeria, we give everybody one school, say must be equally distributed. What's equally distributed? Babala cheating. This guy has already had his own. We need equity in order to move things forward. And like I've said, migration is decreasing our human capital. This is a graduating set of 1986. You may recognize this badly fed guy. There are 8 of us. Only one is left in the country. What are we replaced with? Okada riders. And you want to develop. You got to be kidding me. It's not going to happen. This is what institutions are supposed to do. This is what we should be telling government. It's not everything that is political expediency. They must understand what the science is behind their policies, or the science of the result of their policies are. There's no point leaving the government and now saying you have regrets, as they always talk about. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we come to my acknowledgements, and as I was writing this lecture, I could not but recall having an exciting debate with the late Professor Akinkugbe in London in the summer of 2002 on this very topic of transforming health education and research and healthcare in Nigeria. That debate began at 6 p.m. and only ended at 2 a.m. when his wife, Auntie, walked into the sitting room and declared, Bumi, wa ma lolie, fi oko mi sile. Which translates to, Bumi, please go to your house and leave my husband alone. I am glad to have been given this opportunity to present further evidence in support of my position to a larger jury and at a more socially acceptable time, and hopefully to Professor Mrs. Akinkugbe's satisfaction. I am convinced that Professor Oladipo Akinkugbe will be sharing wherever he is the fact that the first series of academic events held in his memory are taking place in his beloved University of Medical Sciences, Ondo City, an institution he was so proud of. He may also have been tickled by the fact that the lecture was delivered by a surgeon from the institution where he's made his career and the town he adopted as his home for the larger part of his life. I must acknowledge that his demise, though not chronologically premature, has certainly left a gap in the academic, professional, and political structure of tertiary education and healthcare in Nigeria. His towering figure, broad smile, and signature quick and quixotic wit are sorely missed by his peers, collaborators, mentees, and foes alike. But this cannot compare to what his departure must mean to Professor Folashade Akinkugbe, his partner and confidant of over 50 years, and to Olumide and Kayode and the grandchildren. To them we say, Eku ilede, Eku atemora, Eku araferaku, ki Oluwa ki o tẹ́ wọn sí afẹ́fẹ́ rere. May he so rest in peace. Mr. Chairman, the Akinkugbe family, the representatives of the Oshimawe of Ondo, my lords, spiritual, temporal, academic, medical, and judicial, after Professor Akinkugbe, he taught me that one. Having said all that, I would like to express my appreciation once again to the university for the honor done me by inviting me to deliver this second distinguished lecture in memory of our late icon and sage. Your Excellency, whilst I hope you have noted at least a few points in this lecture for action, I am sure you would appreciate that it has taken a village of people to put such a magnus opus together. Whilst it will be difficult to mention each one of them, I must specifically mention those who played significant roles in my foray into the education and health systems. In this wise, I am grateful to Professor Temitayo Shokunbi, who was provost when I was whom nominated me for the FEMA Medical Education Fellowship that set my feet on the medical education pathway, and to Professors Oluwole Adebo, Bolagunte Ajao, and Simbo Amanu Boadu, all of blessed memory, who provided the protective support in the early years that ensured that the journey was not abbreviated shortly after it started. I must also acknowledge the contribution of my co-travelers on this journey at the College of Medicine and nationally and internationally, all of whom have been wonderful collaborators over the past 20 years. There is no doubt that without these relationships, my successes in these fields would have been impossible. I value the contributions of the language experts, particularly Professor Duro Adeleke and Mrs. Olufumilola Irande and Professor Akute, in translating texts, creating words as required for our numerous projects. I thank Professors Olajide Bademosi and Adeshegun Fatusi, and Doctors Tony Marinho, Samuel Ajayi, and Akitunde Orumuyi for proofreading and commenting on these scripts to improve it. I must appreciate my research staff for tolerating my intolerance. I am grateful to the University of Ibadan, its College of Medicine, and Teaching Hospital for providing the enabling environment that transformed a secondary school student of average ability to a full professor of a world-class university who would be considered worthy to give this lecture. I would also like to thank my numerous mentors for lighting the candles that continue to illuminate my path. My special gratitude goes to Professors A.B. O.O. Yediran and Ajobi Scott Emoakpo for their enduring carrot and stick fatherly considerations in varying proportions. To my brothers at arms, particularly Dr. Olufemi Ogunlusi and Edimoela, and Obafunke Dende, I humbly state that I do not take your unending patience, untiring listening ears, and unflinching support over the years for granted. I must thank my family in Ondo. I mentioned that Ondo is my third town. The family of late High Chief Ile Mobaya Kenola, the late Lisa Ojogbogbo Biodun of Ondo Kingdom, who first brought us to Ondo in 1968, thereabouts. And of course, the family of late High Chief Ebonlawe, who was the late Odofin of Ondo Kingdom, who was my godfather and my father's friend. And the family of late Chief F.A. Adedaya Robert, the late Odotu Omoba of Ondo Kingdom. All these families are represented by the current Lotting of Ondo Kingdom, Chief Akinka Akinola, who is joining us by Zoom, and I'm sure the rest of the Akinola clan too, and the Olawe clan, we've all been one great family. I'm deeply indebted to my parents and to my siblings for the privilege of bearing their name and sharing in its benefits and responsibilities, and for bequeathing me with the pedigree that has made the quest for excellence a way of life. Finally, I thank the Triune God for bestowing me with a coat of many colors, and for giving me the opportunity to drink from his fount of eternal satiety, and for letting his light so shine today as it has each and every day. I end this lecture whence I started, with the great man that we're all here to celebrate, Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Ajibike Akinkugbe, by quoting a Portuguese proverb from his valedictory lecture, Swishing Currents and Swollen Streams, which he delivered on the 9th of November in Ibadan in 1995. He said, and I quote, "There is joy in every meeting, if not at the beginning, certainly at the end." This gives me firm assurance that everybody in this audience would have enjoyed one or the other part of this distinguished lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all.
Show by Professor E.O. Olapade Olaopa, Fellow Academy of Science. At this point, we'll be inviting the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Professor Rose Angela I. Umuba, to make a presentation of award to the guest speaker for today. Please put your hands together for Professor Rose Angela Umuba. She will be doing this assignment.
Can we call the guest speaker, distinguished lecturer, to come? On behalf of the University of Medical Sciences, the management, member of council, lecturers, well-wishers, we present to you this token. Thank you for being with us and for the excellent lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. And Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, permit me at this point to bring to the podium the Governor of Ondo State, Arakunrin Oluwarotimi Odunayo Akeredolu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, ably and well represented by the Commissioner for Works, Lands and Infrastructure, Ondo State, Honorable Engineer Raimi Aminu, for the Governor's speech. Please put your hands together for Honorable Raimi.
Dear fathers, members of the high table, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, kindly permit me to stand on the already established protocols. And even at that, I think I have two people here that I have to specially recognize. One is my daddy, Professor Adegeye. Good afternoon, sir. Why I recognize him especially, some years back, when I was undergoing my pupillage, I was transferred to Ondo as a divisional engineer. Then was saddled with one assignment, New Era Road, Ileoluji. I was the engineer supervising the project.
And my thought then was to travel abroad, that I'm just doing this work for a while. There was one afternoon, maybe you might have forgotten. He invited us with the engineers, he addressed us, gave us some words of encouragement, among other things. Among what he said that day, he said, future will be bright, just face what you are doing. And we thank God where we are today. Part of the advice he gave us that day is working today now. In addition to that, partially is into agriculture. He always give us smoked fish. And those smoked fish, they call them smoked fish, but you won't find any smoke on the fish. Thank you, sir. Secondly, I must appreciate the VC for the personal interest it developed in this institution. I'm fortunate to have one or two encounters with him, I think dated back last year, when so many encroachers were trying to take our land. Went up and down meeting Mr. Governor, coming to my office, following those things up. But I'm happy to announce to you today that though we ceded some part of the land to those encroachers, but a substantial part of the land will be given back to the university. Thirdly, let me appreciate the guest lecturer for the robust lecture he has given us. It made me remind of the old days when I was in secondary school. My father wanted me to go for medicine. Myself, I was thinking of going to medicine. When I was in Form 3, Form 4, all the subjects I focused on, the major subjects I focused on was biology. Then I knew vertebral column from skull, axis, lumbar, all the skeleton. I can mention most of the bones in the body because I thought, knowing those ones, definitely you must become a doctor. Even the digestive system in the body. If I'm teaching the younger ones now, you'll be asking, is he a doctor? No, those was what I learned during those periods. That was when the teachers were teaching, not lecturing. Let me also appreciate my colleague, one of the brilliant brains in the cabinet, Dr. Mrs. Ilawole. You are welcome. All protocol duly observed. We need to thank God for the life of late Baba Akinkugbe. All the encomium comments that we hear here today, all of us will have loved to be him after we have gone, that's some years, several years to come. But it's not easy. We just have to work for it. I'm here representing my governor, which is unavoidably absent because he's currently having an assignment at Abuja. It is my great pleasure, at least it is Mr. Governor's pleasure, to welcome you all to this event, being the second in the series of distinguished lectures organized in honor of Emeritus Professor Oladipo Olujimi Akinkugbe, a distinguished citizen of our dear state and a renowned patriot of Nigeria in every sense of the word. When the University of Medical Sciences established this tradition about a year ago, precisely on the 29th of July 2021, it was with a sense of history and visionary focus on the legacy of Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe, the foundation chairman of the University Council, a distinguished scholar whose contributions to medical education, research, and practice have continued to attract global recognition. 7 years ago, when the Ondo State government established Nigeria's first specialist health and medical sciences university with a focus on excellence in teaching, research and service, it was only fitting to identify a cerebral administrator, manager, and scholar to help shape the philosophy of the institution. As chairman of the council, Professor Akinkugbe was a perfect fit for the role and the quality of foundation laid in identifying and attracting some of the best talents to UNIMED is self-evident. It is my hope that this tradition of the pursuit of excellence will continue to be a core value of this institution. The imperative for a responsive, fit-for-purpose health care system calls for the obligatory integration of a core set of competencies into health professionals' education. These core competencies include patient-centered care, interdisciplinary teams, evidence-based practice, quality improvement, and informatics. Our University of Medical Sciences aims to be in the benchmark in health education, while touching the lives of our citizens and making an impact globally and in tangible ways. It is, therefore, appropriate that UNIMED is in the vanguard of health education improvement in Nigeria with the continuous improvement of oversight processes, the training environment, research, public reporting, and leadership in the field. Ladies and gentlemen, our administration, that is the administration led by Arakunrin Oluwarotimi Odunwayo Akeredolu, SAN, recognizes health and education as a fundamental and critical indicators of human development. They are essentially drivers of economic growth and prosperity. Notwithstanding the prevailing global and national economic challenges and competing demands for resources in our state, we remain committed to the emergence and sustenance of a health system that can protect human life, deliver everyday health benefits, and produce good health outcomes irrespective of prevailing challenges. Our administration is also deeply committed to the issue of quality education. UNIMED has a key focus in our education and health agenda, and we are proud of its strides. It will be recalled that Professor Oladipo Akinkugbe led the management and governance of several academic and health institutions, as well as served on numerous national and international committees. He embraced this role with an eagerness to improve the quality of medical education. This gathering is an appropriate memorial and tribute to his legacy. This year's lecture fittingly focuses on the imperative of transforming health professionals' education in Nigeria. It is equally telling that the distinguished lecturer is a veteran health educator, and you will all agree with me. Past provost of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, and current president of the African Medical Schools Association, Professor Emiola Olubumi Olakpade Olaopa. Clearly, he is well positioned to provide deep insight on the subject from practical perspective, and he has done that to us. I think he deserves a round of applause. During his lecture, he highlighted so many things where he sent me to government and to Mr. Governor. Your message will be adequately delivered. But among what you raised, you made mention of the migration of some medical personnel into abroad. And that despite that in sub-Sahara, we still have partially enough medical team here, but they are poorly distributed. We appreciate and acknowledge that. That's why part of the cardinal point program of this administration is infrastructural development, to reduce rural-urban drift. With rural-urban drift, if the infrastructure in the rural areas are improved, definitely if any medical personnel are posted to those areas, what they are benefiting from the town, if they are benefiting from the villages, there won't be any difference. Let me give you a practical example. I was outside the country a few weeks ago. A friend came to visit me, and we went out. We drove over 3 hours. All the area we traversed through, you'll be thinking that you are in the capital. Anybody living in those areas won't have any difference in living in its capital. With that, if infrastructurally our government can improve, I mean the national government, there will be rural-urban drift. It will be reduced to the barest minimum. So I quite agree with you, and I will deliver your message. You also mentioned about planning, that any successful government plans for 3 or 4 years. Their mandate is just 4 years. But after 3 years, they'll be preparing their exit. And the major problem we're having in Nigeria, which I know and which we also highlighted, is succession program, succession plan, lack of succession plans. But I'm happy to tell you that our administration, government administration, I think is the first in Ondo State that will follow the blueprint of his successor. It's clearly shown when we came on board, all the projects being undergone by the past administration, he reviewed them. Where we need to improve, we improve on them. What we found okay, we just pick it, hook, line, and sinker. Part of it is the medical university we are here today. If after we pass administration, stylishly, they will kill these medical sciences. So I think Mr. Gono deserves a better round of applause. Anybody coming after him, if he can toe his line too, by God's grace, we will get there, which I pray so. This year's lecture fittingly focuses on the imperative of transforming health professionals' education in Nigeria. It is equally telling that the distinguished lecturers, which I've mentioned, clearly is a well-positioned to provide deep insight on the subject of the practical perspective. I'm convinced that this lecture has taught us 1 or 2 lessons. I hereby salute Mama, Professor Mrs. F.M. Akinkugbe, the children of the entire Akinkugbe family. We are all proud of the legacy of Emeritus Professor Akinkugbe. I hope the succeeding generations of medical teachers and practitioners will continue to draw inspiration from his life. And during his citation, among all we are in transverses, I was happy when they mentioned that he was former VC of Ahmadu Bello University. That's only the university in Nigeria, Ahmadu Bello and others. And he was a VC there. So you can see that he has transversed all the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, and even outside Nigeria. I thank you all. God bless you.
That is in appreciation of Mr. Governor, ably represented by the Commissioner for Works, Land and Infrastructure, Ondo State, Honorable Engineer Raimi Aminu. Thank you very much, sir. We are now taking the vote of thanks. Mr. Vice Chancellor, permit me to invite the Director of the Central Office for Research Development of the University, called Professor Olumide Ogudansi, to take the vote of thanks. A round of applause as we welcome Professor Ogudansi.
I would like to stand on existing protocol. It's been a very long afternoon, but a very, very fulfilling one. Let me begin by expressing our deep appreciation and thanks to the visitor of the university, the governor of Ondo State, Arakunrin Oluwarotimi Odunayo Akeredolu, SAN, for his continued support for this program, and also to thank his able representation in the person of the Commissioner for Lands and Infrastructural Development. We thank you very much for your presence. I would also like to express the appreciation of the university to the members of the Akinkugbe family. We are so grateful that you were able to come for this occasion and be physically present. We know that Mama could not come today, but you ably represented him, and we very much appreciate that from you all. I'd also like to thank the special guests and government functionaries who are here today, the Lord Bishop, the members of the Oshimawe in Council. We thank you very much, the High Chiefs, the Lisa, the Shashere, and the Odofin. We're very grateful that you could also grace this occasion here today. We thank very much our distinguished lecturer. It's been a very, very stimulating lecture, a very challenging lecture, a very thought-provoking lecture, and of course, a lot of refreshing perspectives and validation in some of the things that you've said. I thoroughly enjoyed the lecture, and I'm sure many people also did the same. Thank you very much for coming and for delivering such a very, very articulate lecture. To the friends of the lecturer who traveled from far and wide, and those who are online, we thank you for your patience and for staying with us throughout the duration of this lecture. Some of you have not seen for over 20 years, and you showed up here today all the way from Ibadan. We thank you for making the trip. Participants online, like I said, who have been so very patient, and of course, members of the university community, the academics, the administration, the administrative staff, all the other support staff in the university, and of course the students who were here to have listened to this lecture. Without all of you, we could not have had a successful event. And so I'd like to express once again the gratitude of the university and the appreciation for your presence, and pray that as many of you as will be traveling out of town back to your stations, the Lord will protect you and keep you safe. Amen. Thank you very much.
Achieve the best in health science.
Thank you very much. Please remain standing while the procession of the Vice Chancellor departs the hall. In reverse order.
And the special advisor on education, who is our superintendent. So we need to see her more and more. One of the things that the SSD always like is that when she comes, it's not the woman. It's always one other woman. So because I'm sure you always have a woman on side. So I want to thank our lecturer. Thank you so much. I want to thank Mr. Olimide. Thank you very much, sir. It's good to have you here. I understand you have something.
I thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And Baba, thank you for that. I want to thank my colleagues in the Principal Officer's School. It's a pleasure always working with you. Thank you very much for all you do on behalf of our great institution.
In reverse order.